Our protagonist has a sad look on his face, wondering if it was all unfair. In the middle of a crowd, the young man clenches his fist with a serious expression. Then, he looks out at the busy street, not seeming to fully grasp the situation. The young man's name is Hugo, and he remembers he has to go to the company for an inspection. At that moment, his parents hurry him along, saying they have a reservation at a restaurant. The boy agrees to go with them, and his father says that dinner tonight is on the house. His parents are excited to eat together, but something strange cracks the sky. That red glow reflects in the boy's eye as he senses the imminent danger. Desperate, he grabs his father, begging them not to go down that path. However, his father doesn't understand the reason for his fear and tells him not to worry. But his father just ignores him, thinking his son is just nervous about going to a fancy dinner. The young man desperately screams that if they go that way, his parents will be gone. And right in front of him, the image of his parents begins to glitch and fade away. Then everything turns red, and a mysterious voice asks why he was the only one to escape. Suddenly, the young man wakes up startled in his bed, realizing it was a nightmare. Looking around, he sees that he is safe inside his room. Sitting on the bed, the boy seems very shaken by the nightmare he just had. With that, he reaches out his arm and grabs the phone that was on the table beside him. When he turns on the device, he sees a news story about a disaster that occurred 10 hours ago. The young man has a confused and worried expression as he reads the notification. On the walls of the room, you can see various notes and research papers. Among the papers, there's even a diagram of a very bizarre skeletal creature. The protagonist stares at the wall covered in research about these strange phenomena. Then he gets out of bed and tries to pull himself together for the day ahead. While getting ready, he remembers that today is the inspection day, and he needs to go to the company. A while later, we see the young man on a crowded train, heading to work. In the middle of the crowd, he hears the train's television talking about the weather and disasters. The report begins to talk about the demonic world transformation in Shimane. According to the reporter, the event was resolved thanks to the efforts of the soldiers. Despite this, the landscape of Shimane looks like a desolate battlefield. A woman with black hair says that this demonification can happen at any time. This manifestation is actually a seal that turns everything into a nightmare. It's a domain full of monsters where people are forced into a deadly game. In this place, if you can't stand up to the monsters, your fate is sealed, and for those who can't fight, only a cruel end awaits them. Cutting to another scene, we see a soldier suffering and screaming in pain. The woman from before holds him and says it's their duty to protect people from that threat. Angrily, she says that because of his delay, more than 200 people were lost. The soldier then grabs her, irritated, and asks what happened to the local squad. He says it was a daycare, and even knowing it was too late, he saw something unbearable. He saw that the daycare walls were covered in drawings made by the children. Furious, the woman kicks the soldier, sending him flying with great force. She tells him to return his emblem and resign, as he is not worthy of wearing it. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a young man reads a news story about the decline in the quality of soldiers. This is Hakura Koki, a soldier who gets annoyed reading the lecture from this Rindu person. Kono Izashi, the factory supervisor, tells him to calm down and ignore it. But Hakura doesn't like that at all and starts to emanate a golden energy from his hand. His supervisor is completely terrified, not understanding what is happening. Suddenly, a blade of light appears and stops right at the supervisor's neck. The white-haired soldier says she's not that amazing, she just survived an incident. Kono is terrified and, stammering, asks his colleague to put the weapon away. The young man then dismisses the energy blade, and the supervisor breathes a sigh of relief. Next, the supervisor shows off the factory, saying that production is going very well. The boxes are full of products with Hakura's face on them, which are selling a lot. The soldier then suggests they increase production, but Kono says they are short on people. At that moment, a person bumps into them and quickly apologizes for the incident. That is Fushimi Yugo, our protagonist, who has arrived late for work. The irritated supervisor scolds the young man for being late, and tells him to get to work. Hakura asks if that clumsy rookie is also an employee of the company. The supervisor explains that the young man is slow and distracted, and it seems he doesn't sleep well. Over on the production line, a coworker named Akari says good morning to Yugo. She warns him that if he's too late, they'll deduct it from his salary. The girl also notices the dark circles under the young man's eyes and comments that they look terrible today. Akari then asks if he's been sleeping well, and Yugo awkwardly replies that he has. But while they were working, a small accident happens, and someone gets cut with a box cutter. Akari cries out in pain, and Yugo realizes she has just cut her own finger. She shows the small cut and says the blade went right through her protective glove. The girl says she's going to stop the bleeding, but the protagonist stops her from leaving. Then Yugo offers her a large bandage, saying it will solve the problem. The young woman is surprised by his gesture, but thanks him for the help. She asks if he always carries these things with him, and the young man says it's a habit. Watching from a distance, Hakura calls him a kind-hearted incompetent. After work, Yugo leaves alone, thinking he's the type who never gains anything. But before he can get too far, his supervisor calls him over for a chat. He invites the protagonist to go for a drink with the department's staff. Yugo tries to refuse, but his boss grabs him and drags him to the bar. Upon arriving, the young man is already thinking of a way to escape, so he doesn't miss the last train. Akari sits next to him and comments on the smell of cigarettes in the place. The supervisor approaches and asks the young man if he's having fun. Another colleague comments that he heard the young man doesn't usually leave the house. The supervisor mocks him, saying the guy isn't just an introvert, but a recluse. Akari scolds her colleague, but another asks if Yugo has some kind of social anxiety. He then suggests that maybe the young man is afraid of the so-called demonic world transformation. With a smile, the supervisor says the boy just needs to avoid the designated areas. The man then calls the protagonist a coward, leaving Akari very worried about the situation. The girl defends her friend, saying the boss is being insensitive about the topic. With that, she invites Yugo to play darts, trying to get him out of the awkward situation. But the supervisor continues to provoke him, asking if he's ever played in virtual reality. Akari ignores him and says she's very good at the game to cheer up her friend, who seems down. Suddenly, the young man's eye glows, and he notices a dart flying in their direction. In a swift move, he pulls Akari aside, dodging the object by a hair's breadth. The girl falls to the floor, confused, and sees the dart stuck in the wall where she was standing. One of the coworkers who threw the dart just blows on his fingertips. The others burst out laughing, making fun of the protagonist's over-the-top reaction. The young man apologizes, but Akari says it's dangerous if the dart had hit her eye. Yugo gets discouraged and says he only showed his pathetic side to his coworker. The boss grabs him again, saying he's anxious and needs to drink more. Suddenly, Akari looks toward the entrance of the bar, and her expression changes to pure terror. At the door, a bizarre and frightening clown stares at everyone in complete silence. People wonder if that clown is a new employee or some kind of performer. The drunk supervisor goes up to him and asks for tequila for the entire extra staff. But out of nowhere, the clown shoots something from his hand, causing a huge explosion. Right after, a part of the supervisor's body falls to the floor. The clown reveals its glowing eyes and a wicked smile stained with red. In shock, the supervisor looks at his own body and realizes his arm is gone. His face contorts into an expression of pure terror and despair. Lying on the floor, the man screams in pain as the clown slowly approaches. The creature just flashes an even wider smile, listening to its victim's screams. Panic breaks out in the bar, and everyone starts running desperately for the exit. The supervisor tries to drag himself away, but is hit by more of the monster's attacks. Akari then grabs Yugo by the hand and yells for them to run as fast as possible. The two run for the exit amidst the chaos and destruction caused by the clown. Outside, an intense light explodes on top of a nearby building. The light grows stronger and stronger, starting to swallow everything around the bar. Yugo and Akari manage to get out, but their supervisor is right behind them, terrified. The two look at the street and are paralyzed by the horrifying scene they see. The city has transformed and is now filled with bizarre monsters attacking people. A giant creature uses people as puppets to hunt down the survivors. Chaos takes over the city, with monsters of all kinds running through the streets. The supervisor screams in fear upon seeing the nightmare the world outside has become. The protagonist turns around and screams desperately for it all to stop. The city is engulfed in a red mist, and a huge monster approaches them. One of the coworkers shouts that this place wasn't supposed to be in the outbreaky forecast. Another young man becomes desperate and starts screaming for help, calling for the soldiers. A red light in the sky confirms that the demonification has officially begun. Akari calls out to Yugo, frightened, but he seems shaken by the situation. He wonders why this always happens, and a monster with a scythe appears. One of the coworkers gets enraged and charges at the monster with a metal pipe. He starts repeatedly striking the creature, screaming. The clown just smiles and gives a thumbs up, encouraging the attack. But suddenly, the monster's scythe strikes the young man down with a final blow. The others realize that attacking is useless, as the creature feels no pain. The supervisor tries to crawl away, begging not to be left behind. The monster steps on his leg, and the man screams in pain while begging it to stop. With a wicked smile, the clown says it doesn't understand what pain is. Yugo then extends his hand forward, as if trying to stop the creature. In a swift move, he grabs the monster's scythe, telling it to stop this. The other coworkers look at Yugo, surprised by his courageous action. Tears stream down the face of one of the young men, watching everything in shock. The young man says his supervisor complained of pain and that the creature should stop. The clown says the young man seems to have courage, but that's not enough. The creature then attacks him with its weapon, but Yugo manages to narrowly dodge it. A piece of the protagonist's clothing is cut and falls to the ground in slow motion. With a makeshift axe, he attacks and lands a direct hit on the monster. The clown stares at him with a confused and surprised look at the unexpected attack. Yugo says that with this, the monster should have understood a little about pain. The clown starts to writhe and scream as it dissolves into smoke. It wonders what this is and why it's feeling something so strange. The creature seems to panic at the unknown sensation coursing through its body. Gradually, the clown transforms into a purple and monstrous beast. The creature now has sharp claws and a mouth full of pointy teeth. With his eyes glowing red, Yugo prepares for the next attack. He says the monster's aim is terrible and activates his Vessel of Pain ability. His weapon transforms into a large, glowing red energy sword. Yugo remembers the pain of being cut by a sword and channels it into his attack. He charges at the monster, which seems frightened by the young man's power. The young man says that monsters like him always laugh while taking the lives of others. With a single swing of his sword, he slices right through the creature. The monster starts to scream in pain, feeling the power of Yugo's ability. The creature dissolves into black and purple smoke, disappearing completely. The protagonist holds his weapon and says he can't bear his own pain. With his hand over his mouth, the young man wipes the red from his face while breathing heavily. At that moment, the girl and another colleague look at him, asking about that strange knife. The young man then gives a slight smile as he remembers the nightmare from the beginning of it all. 8 years ago, the first outbreak occurred in Tokyo, affecting thousands of people, with few survivors. In the ruins of the destroyed city, we see a little boy sitting next to a severely injured woman. There, that little boy had to face giant, bizarre monsters covered in eyes. With his face all bruised, the child holds a piece of metal in his mouth, ready to fight. Even though he was only 12 years old, the boy stood firm despite his tired and traumatized eyes. Back in the present, the survivor holds tight to his reward, earned in that old tragedy. Far away, a motorcycle tire spins at high speed, tearing up the asphalt. A person in a helmet rides their motorcycle, weaving through cars in the night traffic. The mysterious rider reports over the radio that she has just arrived in the city, and that going by bike would be faster. The base asks her to join the fight as soon as she arrives, as there are few soldiers available in the area. On the motorcycle's dashboard, a phone glows, showing detailed information about the current mission. The woman states that her main objective is to rescue a specific person shown on the screen. With a smile on her face, she refers to this target as an old and dear comrade in arms. Returning to the chaos, the group of workers remains frozen, staring at the protagonist. The colleague deduces that the red knife must be a personal weapon, exclusive to soldiers. The young man on the ground shrinks back, asking how he got such a powerful weapon. But suddenly, the blonde girl's eyes widen, and she screams desperately, warning about something behind him. At that, the young man turns his head and notices a bizarre group of clowns and scary animals approaching. In total panic, the injured colleague leaps up from the ground and starts running away. The hero swiftly grabs the man's arm and pulls him back, warning that running like that is a sure way to get caught. He then points to a nearby commercial building, indicating the best place for them to hide. In that instant, the young man is startled as he realizes a dangerous attack is coming his way. Unfortunately, the other colleague ends up being hit in the shoulder by a spear thrown by one of the monsters. The bizarre creature just smiles wickedly as it prepares another deadly shot. The injured man falls violently to the ground, while Hugo runs to try and save him in time. But the enemy mounted on the elephant throws another swift spear, taking advantage of its long attack range. The boy starts to sweat, and his mind is forced to remember the dark days of the past. A terrible memory surfaces, showing the child being brutally struck through the chest. With hatred in his eyes, he grips his weapon, focusing on all that pain to activate his special ability. In an extremely agile move, the protagonist leaps, perfectly dodging the enemy's attack. He charges forward furiously, using the traumatic memory of the spear to increase his own strength. Meanwhile, the injured civilian drags himself along the ground in desperation, trying to escape the danger. Hugo shouts for everyone to run as fast as possible, assuring them there's still time to survive. The people panic and dash toward the building, while the warrior protects the rear. With a strong push, one of the survivors breaks down the entrance door, seeking safety. Once inside, the group barricades themselves in and someone cries, saying they are now trapped like rats. Annoyed, the protagonist tells everyone to be quiet while he watches the monster's shadow outside. Through the glass door, we can see the sinister clown standing still, staring at the building's entrance. The giant elephant and one of the enemies stare at the place bizarrely, trying to intimidate the group. Hiding behind the wall, the hero sweats nervously while the other survivors tremble in pure terror. But suddenly, one of the clowns turns on its heel, gives up on invading the building, and starts to walk away. With that, all the creatures turn their backs and begin to slowly move away from that place. The girl sighs, asking if they gave up, and her colleague finds this sudden retreat strange. Then, the young man explains that trying to get the group inside the building wouldn't be very efficient for them. He says that the creature's mission is to eliminate as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. Causing panic and terror among the crowd is just a tactic to make their rampage easier. From this, he deduces that the monsters went to hunt for easier prey, because chasing them there would be too much work. Thus, avoiding a large building means fewer available victims and less desire to invade. The injured colleague's eyes widen, impressed that he thought of all this in the midst of chaos. At that moment, the blonde asks if his injury is okay, and the man is startled as he remembers the wound. Desperate, he looks at his own arm, but the hero tells him to calm down, assuring him the bleeding has stopped. The protagonist states that no one goes down easily in there, because that's how these outbreaks work. The creatures prolong the suffering on purpose, just to watch the victims fight for their lives. Staring out the window, the boy notices it's too bright to be night, and that the place has been shaped for this. He then hands a bottle of medicine to the injured man, revealing that he always carries it as a good luck charm. With a serene look, the warrior tells him not to give up, because surviving will heal all wounds. Holding the bottle, the worker is moved by the unexpected support in the middle of that nightmare. He then asks why he is receiving so much help and protection, but the young man says there's no real reason. Turning his back, the protagonist warns that if they don't help each other now, they will all end up taken out. Maintaining a firm stance, he reinforces that demonic outbreak zones are just this extreme. Calmer now, the injured colleague takes a deep breath and asks what the group's next step will be to escape. With a focused and intimidating look, the hero asks everyone to listen very carefully to his plan. Soon, the girl helps push furniture to block the door, preparing for the real challenge. At the same time, one of the young men searches the cabinets, saying that weapons tend to appear in these scenarios. Focusing on drawers and enclosed spaces is the best tactic, as magical items sprout in these places. The blonde explains that as soon as they are armed, they will go out to hunt monsters and gain a lot of experience. Inside a locker, a glowing rifle appears, proving that the difficulty is about to increase even more. In a matter of minutes, the civilians find beautiful firearms, knowing they need that power to win. Even the injured man finds a gleaming pistol as the group agrees to find more survivors. Now armed, they all take tactical positions by the building's windows, ready to begin the fight. Leading the team, the protagonist raises his sword of light, promising that everyone will get out of this rift alive. Looking through the glass window, the young man observes the street completely infested with the bizarre creatures from the beginning. The blonde notices the crowd of clowns outside, realizing that the easy targets attracted the worst of them. But the hero points out that they have the high ground and can easily level up their forces. Taking the front line, he plans to distract the beasts while the others shoot right after. He instructs the other pair to shoot from the downstairs windows, urging extreme caution against invasions. The hero firmly grips his red sword, while the girl gets ready with her weapon right behind him. At that, the blonde looks worriedly at her colleague, asking if he isn't pushing himself too hard. With a gentle smile, the young man reassures his friend, stating that he's quite used to this. Then the warrior bravely jumps through the window, leaving the girl completely shocked behind him. Down below, a bizarre crowd of beasts awaits him, proving that ordinary weapons would have no effect. At that moment, he grips the hilt of his magic sword, knowing he needs an area of effect attack. Normally, these bizarre monsters feel no pain and continue attacking with a smile, but the hero's special power applies a unique effect that completely changes the beast's reaction. As soon as they are hit, they gain exposed vital points that make them much easier targets. A critical hit can then eliminate the beast instantly, and the young man focuses on applying this debuff quickly. Using cruel memories, the boy grips his magic weapon and activates the true form of his power. Immediately, a gigantic wave of red energy explodes from the blade, covering everything. The sinister clowns look up confused as glowing drops fall like rain. In an instant, the red storm hits the creatures, simulating the terrible pain of an acid rain. Panic takes over the street as the monsters scream desperately, melting under the brutal attack. Seeing that they all suffered the pain effect, the protagonist seizes the opportunity and dives into the fight. Following the plan, the survivors on the floor below open fire mercilessly on the enemy horde. At the same time, the blonde and her colleagues shoot from above, using their new long-range weapons. A shower of bullets hits the clowns head-on, creating intense explosions all over the asphalt. In the midst of the chaos, a red flash cuts through a clown's chest with frightening speed. The hero nimbly moves through the crowd, slicing the weakened targets before they can react. With their guard down, the monsters fall one by one before the warrior's relentless sequence. Without losing momentum, the young man shouts for his allies to keep firing without stopping for a second. Motivated by his leadership, the two young men firmly pull their triggers, clearing the area. Up above, the young woman fires relentlessly as empty casings fly out the window. Even injured, the colleague shows pure determination, focusing his aim and hitting the targets below. With a focused gaze, the survivor swings his red blade and continues to slice through the enemies. Suddenly, two bizarre beasts with giant mouths try to attack the young man from behind by surprise. However, he reacts quickly, delivering a powerful upward slash that hits the creature dead on. At that, another clown armed with sharp claws charges furiously, ready to slice the hero. In that instant, the protagonist's eyes widen as he notices the dangerous approach of that monster. But the blonde shouts from above and aims her shotgun directly at the creature to save her friend. A direct hit strikes the clown, blowing the target up before it could touch the warrior. The enemy falls defeated on the asphalt, while the young man looks up, praising his colleague's aim. Full of confidence, the young woman says she plays a lot of computer games, leaving her partner quite surprised. The hero then turns his attention to the fallen monster and notices something glowing in the smoke. From the window, the two survivors look on, confused, trying to understand what just appeared on the street. The beast's body dissolves, revealing a floating yellow cube that seems to be a very valuable item. Smiling, the protagonist says the girl is very lucky, as that prize is something quite special. The glowing cube is an extremely rare treasure with a minimal chance of appearing during the outbreak. The hero and the blonde look on impressed at the shining cube floating in the middle of the destroyed street. The young man then explains that golden items are very rare and asks his ally to open the chest. With a little hesitation, the girl holds the luminous object and opens it very carefully. At that moment, her eyes widen, and she is completely confused by what she just found. To everyone's surprise, a beautiful white kitten emerges from inside that mysterious cube, but the animal soon vanishes, and the hero reassures the young woman, telling her it went to her inventory. At that, the warrior tells her to keep it safe, as it must be a very important item. Getting back to the mission, the protagonist suggests they join the other survivors there. Arriving on the lower floor, the group of civilians hugs the pair, thanking them immensely for saving them. The elderly people recount the terror they felt, but the young man smiles, relieved to have arrived in time. Observing the environment, the girl finally realizes that the building also houses a nursing home. Suddenly, a heavy footstep catches everyone's attention, indicating that someone powerful is approaching. A young man with platinum hair appears with an arrogant smile, praising the group's resistance. The workers break into huge smiles of hope as they recognize the famous soldier. The newcomer apologizes for being late, stating that he was fighting monsters in another area. Overjoyed, the civilians surround the newcomer, revealing themselves to be big fans of his live streams. Meanwhile, the hero and his partner just stare at the platinum-haired guy in absolute silence. In his mind, the protagonist deduces that the newcomer was just hiding, waiting for the chaos to pass. But to avoid causing a panic, the young man decides to stay quiet and thanks the soldier for his supposed help. With that, the arrogant guy takes charge of the situation, calling the group to plan the next step. But before they can speak, the nursing home wall explodes violently, startling everyone there. The giant elephant-faced monster invades the place, destroying everything in its path with fury. Immediately, the hero summons his red weapon, while the girl readies her rifle for combat. The shots hit the creature's face head-on, causing intense sparks due to the impact. The blonde despairs when she sees that the bullets don't pierce its tough skin, and the warrior steps forward. At that, the protagonist says they need to concentrate all their power on that gigantic target. However, the young man feels a sharp pain in his chest and realizes his body is reaching its limit. He notes that he used too much energy on the last ability and can't use a big attack now. To make matters worse, several macabre clowns start to invade the hall, climbing down the walls. The civilians beg the platinum-haired man for help, but the fake hero angrily tells them all to shut up. Before reacting, the soldier notices the giant beast charging at him with brutal speed. Seeing the danger, the protagonist dashes off, leaving his partner impressed with his action. At the same time, an elderly man from the nursing home fires his weapon and celebrates as the beast retreats a little. Full of courage, the old man quickly reloads his rifle, shouting for the group to keep firing. Taking advantage of the opening from the shots, the young man leaps towards the elephant, preparing his magic dagger. With a lethal move, he plunges the red blade directly into the monster's glowing eye. The pain is so absurd that the colossal beast collapses to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. The girl praises the old man's aim, who just smiles and asks to be called by his name, Gohei. But the fight isn't over yet, as the hero notices 4 smaller beasts advancing on the group. Smiling, the warrior passes on the responsibility, saying he'll leave 2 targets for the platinum-haired guy. The warrior faces a bizarre stuffed lion that charges forward to attack him with its claws. With a pained expression, the young man grips his magic dagger, trying to bravely resist the creature's advance. At that moment, the glowing weapon invokes the power of pain, releasing a very intense energy throughout the area. With this, the hero leaps, transforming his dagger into a giant sword to strike the ferocious beast. In the air, he focuses his strength to show the little monsters the true meaning of pain. He then lands a devastating blow, inflicting on them the agony of being sliced by a longsword. Right after, the warrior dives swiftly toward the ground to continue his assault. His main target now is the huge elephant, which is trying to recover from the previous impact. During his fall, the young man quickly alters his energy blade, creating a large hammer. He lands a direct hit, teaching the giant monster the pain of being crushed by a hammer. The impact is brutal, but the hero questions if that force will be enough to injure its tough skin. At that, the platinum-haired man runs behind the huge animal, saying he'll help the young warrior. But the protagonist's eyes widen as he notices something very wrong with the fake soldier's attitude. The man shows off his skills, hitting one of the small lions with a lightning-filled sword. Laughing, the arrogant man strikes a heroic pose, claiming he'll take care of everything there. With a loud shout, he unleashes several bright electrical attacks against the small beasts. The small stuffed creature takes the full impact of the yellow lightning right in the middle of its face. At the window, the civilians cheer, impressed by the famous power and lightning of that fake warrior. Smiling at the audience, he accepts their applause, ordering them to leave all the combat in his hands. Observing the scene from afar, the protagonist figures out the true intention of that vain man. The young man notices that the platinum-haired guy's movements are weak and lack any real combat technique. He realizes that the soldier's electricity only serves to give the monsters a light shock. Seeing the beast just trembling, he concludes that the soldier has no intention of finishing off the targets. The boy finds it absurd that the guy is acting so over the top just to gain fame among the people. The fake warrior complains about the creature's resistance, proving he doesn't have much raw strength. Wanting space for his show, the platinum-haired man shoves the elderly gentleman in a very rude way. But the veteran defends his position, warning the young man that he should go put on his little show somewhere else. The man's eye twitches upon hearing the firm and intimidating words of that armed old man. With an extremely sharp gaze, the experienced gentleman proves he's not afraid of show-off soldiers. The old man states that there are only 3 warriors there, counting himself and the young man on the monster. He also includes the blonde girl, who was providing support, firing nonstop from inside the building. Holding his weapon, the old man judges it's sad to see other people forgetting how to fight for their lives. With a swift move, the veteran fires, destroying the heads of 2 monsters at the same time. With that, the old man notices that the small creatures don't recoil in pain like the huge elephant did. The young man tries to explain how his ability works, but the armed old man is completely confused. Ignoring the complicated words, the gentleman decides that none of it matters during a fight. At that, the boy flies past the old man, ordering him to get out of the front line immediately. Maintaining his composure, the hero assumes his stance and promises to take care of the rest of the enemies there. The other survivors react with astonishment, thinking the brave old man's attitude is crazy. Ignoring the others' fear, the man readies his rifle, asking if they know how to tame an elephant. Showing how it's done, the old man holds his rifle firmly, preparing to attack. With that, he lands a brutal rifle, but strike right in the face of that elephant-like monster. Climbing onto the creature's back, the veteran continues to strike it, telling the beast to behave. Watching the scene, the young man is surprised, as the gentleman knows the target's weak points well. But soon, the old man warns the boy not to lose focus in this tough battle. With a serious look, the experienced shooter warns that the real enemies are the monsters. Getting the message, the hero charges forward, cutting down the small beasts with his magic sword. Seizing the opportunity, the old man jumps off the giant beast's back and runs, escaping from there. Before leaving, the veteran lands one last strong blow and shouts, telling the young man to run. Feeling immense pain, the colossal beast lets out a terrifying roar, opening its giant mouth. At that, the huge animal raises its front paws, preparing a devastating stomp on the ground. The monster's absurd weight creates a brutal impact capable of crushing anything in front of it. As it comes crashing down with all its force, the beast's own weight acts as a deadly hammer. With the violent impact, the creature collapses on the asphalt, completely defeated and without strength. Seeing the beast fall, the boy breathes a sigh of relief, while the gentleman celebrates their victory. Quickly, the protagonist turns around and smashes the smaller monster with his big hammer. At the window, the other survivors are left with their mouths agape at the brutal scene they just witnessed. The group thinks the young man's incredible strength and the gentleman's courage are completely insane. Meanwhile, the fake soldier starts sweating as they notice he hasn't taken down a single target. Suddenly, a red system window appears in the air, announcing the end of the first phase. The blonde girl notices that the bonus rewards are increasing everyone's stats. At that, the veteran shooter analyzes his own hands, feeling a change in his body. The old man celebrates the end of his back pain, and the young man notes that performance generates points. However, the mood darkens when a new notification warns that a structure will be added. The system alerts all survivors in that area to evacuate immediately. The entire city sky turns red, and the environment takes on a sinister and very dangerous tone. A reddish flash appears on the horizon, catching the attention of the whole group on the streets. Magically, a huge circus tent emerges, breaking up the streets of the urban area. The warrior and his partner observe the colossal construction, shocked by its size. Swallowing hard, they face the challenge as the system declares the start of the new phase. The rules command the group to defeat the circus master within a very strict time limit. The young man realizes that the true test of survival has just begun in front of them. The blonde compares the situation to a video game boss fight, but with no extra lives. Meanwhile, the elderly from the nursing home scold the shooter for pushing his body so hard. The stubborn old man tells the people to go back to the building, stating that the real fight has begun. At that, the young man smiles, extends his hand, and formally introduces himself to the brave gentleman. Accepting the handshake, the veteran reveals himself to be an old and experienced bear hunter. Full of energy, the blonde girl also introduces herself, saying she's a great shooter game player. Forming an alliance, the hunter points behind him, warning that the fake hero is useless. But the protagonist warns that the platinum-haired soldier has a very strong class in the system. The platinum-haired guy's eyes widen in astonishment, thinking the gentleman's ability was just a system bug. With a smirk, the hero faces the man, calling him by his title, Soldier Hakora. Hearing this, the platinum-haired man starts to sweat, maintaining a very strained and nervous smile. Trying to play it off, the show-off crosses his arms, lying that he just wanted to help increase their stats. Fooled by the excuse, the other survivors start praising the warrior, calling him a professional. At that, the protagonist notices that the fake hero needs to keep up appearances, and therefore can't run away. The young man then gets the arrogant soldier's attention, making the guy jump in surprise. Pointing to the crowd, the young man asks the platinum-haired guy to recruit at least 10 people willing to fight. The warrior warns that time is very short and asks the man to do it in just 3 minutes. Thou reluctant, the soldier grumbles, agreeing with the plan, and walks toward the frightened group. Forming the front line, the hero calls his allies, and the group walks firmly toward the danger. The blonde girl shows uncertainty, but the protagonist explains that the monsters don't attack during the preparation phase. A bandaged young man questions the hero's attitude, pointing out that they could just stay hidden. However, the injured man sighs, saying that failing the challenge means total ruin for all survivors. The young man in black agrees, remembering that failing the mission initiates a very cruel punishment game. In this punishment, countless beasts appear non-stop, causing a true massacre with little chance of survival. To avoid this tragedy, the boy lowers his head, stating that they need to win no matter what. Suspicious, the platinum-haired man stares at the young man, noticing he has an abnormal amount of experience for a regular civilian. Looking over his shoulder, the protagonist simply reveals that he has faced a nightmare before in the past. The fake soldier's eyes widen in complete shock upon discovering that the hero is a rare veteran. The arrogant man tries to strike up a conversation about an old acquaintance, but the warrior quickly cuts him off. Cutting the small talk short, the experienced shooter's eyes widen, warning that the target has finally appeared. The group faces a gigantic, bizarre circus tent set up right in the middle of the destroyed city. Suddenly, several armed and macabre clowns begin to emerge from the structure, forming a huge battalion. The blonde is terrified by the number of enemies, and the young man explains that they are the place's guards. Taking advantage of the situation, the protagonist tells everyone to attack first, since the beasts are still stationary. Immediately, the shooters split up to the sides, seeking safe cover among the street's rubble. The injured young man and the girl ready their weapons, maintaining a safe distance to support each other. Holding his magic dagger, the hero announces that he and the platinum-haired guy will take down any monsters that get through. Dashed. Seeing the formation, the arrogant soldier looks at the boy, asking if he really trusts his help. The young man coldly denies it and tells the fake warrior to use his little sparks just to slow down the beasts. Realizing he's been found out, the man questions if the lone young man can handle so many targets. With a calm and focused look, the protagonist holds his red blade, saying he'll at least try. Showing extreme courage, the boy dashes off, warning that this isn't his first time. The bizarre clowns react to the enemy's rapid approach, displaying long and very frightening smiles. Running alone against the crowd, the hero mentally notes that the number of beasts has greatly increased. Preparing his big attack, the young man concentrates an intense red energy, celebrating his current strength. With a devastating move, he launches a huge wave of crimson power, confident in taking down everyone there. The powerful attack travels through the air and transforms into a glowing cluster, floating right above the targets. Suddenly, the sphere explodes, raining hundreds of deadly red needles upon the army of clowns. The red needles hit the clown dead on, making it scream in great pain. At that, the boy explains that he has spread the negative effect to all the enemies present. Seizing the chance, the group of shooters opens fire on the paralyzed beasts. The direct hits cause several explosions, eliminating the monsters with great ease. The blonde and the experienced hunter fire their weapons non-stop, showing excellent aim. Seeing that the plan is working, the protagonist advances, preparing a new attack. With a leap, he creates a giant sword, teaching the monsters the pain of being sliced. However, the young man doesn't even notice a small stuffed lion stealthily leaping up behind him. In that instant, the platinum-haired man fires his electric bolts, frying the beast in mid-air. Smiling in relief, the hero continues his charge, spinning his lethal weapon non-stop. Without losing rhythm, the young man praises the soldier's support in a completely sincere way. But suddenly, a bizarre and gigantic elephant appears, blocking the pair's path. Seeing the colossal danger, the boy shouts, quickly calling for the veteran shooter. Keeping his cool, the experienced hunter aims at the target and tells the young man to leave the shot to him. Trusting his ally, the protagonist leaps away, dodging the huge monster's advance. With absolute precision, the old man pulls the trigger, firing a very powerful shot. The projectile hits the elephant's head dead, blowing up the beast instantly. The veteran maintains a serious posture, while the protagonist praises the beautiful shot from a distance. Smiling, the man explains that's how you take down giant beasts in real life. The experienced shooter recalls that he used to hunt dangerous bears until he was 40. After that, he began to travel the world, facing the largest land beasts. He reloads his weapon, displaying all his vast experience on that urban battlefield. Meanwhile, the young man continues to slice through the remaining clowns with his deadly strikes. The young man praises the gentleman's aim, saying that giving him the rare weapon was the right choice. With the team's heavy firepower, the crowd of clowns is destroyed in just a few minutes. Seeing the clear path, the boy picks up his pace, focused on moving to the next phase. The hero takes a deep breath, relieved to have finally cleared the area of all enemies. The fake soldier is impressed, as the boy didn't let a single beast escape. The man swallows hard, trying to guess the true power level of that rookie. But suddenly, the warrior feels a sharp pain in his chest, suffering a strong physical collapse. The blonde and the platinum-haired man are startled to see the young man staggering, asking if he's okay. Hiding the pain, the hero gives a weak smile, lying that it was just a quick, little dizzy spell. Changing the subject, he points to the giant tent, calling everyone to face the boss. The group enters the bizarre structure, walking through a purple corridor full of stars. The survivors notice that the space inside seems distorted and far too long. The old hunter asks what awaits them, and the platinum-haired man explains that the bosses vary a lot. The arrogant soldier explains that some fights require following tedious rules and procedures. At that, the young woman pulls the boy aside, demanding to know what that weakness from before was. With a firm look, the blonde remembers that the young man had faltered in the same way before. Caught off guard, the hero remains silent, trying to think of a good excuse to give. The protagonist decides to tell the blonde the truth, explaining how his main ability works. He reveals that when he uses his power, all the pain he suffered before is recreated in his body, exactly the same. Like a nightmare, the young man recalls his past wounds, feeling those great agonies return with full force. Hearing this, the girl is astonished and quickly tries to process what she just heard about that power. Completely shocked, she asks if the boy really felt every single one of those terrible blows. The hero confirms, lowering his head as he remembers being cut and even melted by acid. Despite everything, the young man just gives a very faint smile, trying not to worry his new ally. But the young woman can't hold back her strong emotions, and tears begin to fall down her saddened face. Angry with the situation, the blonde yells at the rookie, demanding an explanation for his vast knowledge. Seeing her desperation, the boy sighs, confessing that he learned everything during the Shinjuku disaster. He explains that he was terrified of the world outside and decided to lock himself at home to escape it all. Even wanting to forget the past, the young man spent his nights researching beasts on the internet. Those dark memories never left his mind, leaving a great trauma in his heart. In the end, the hero finally realized that it was impossible to escape his own cruel fate. With a melancholic look, he accepts that all this extreme pain is part of who he has become today. At that, the girl suddenly steps forward and gives the young man a tight hug, completely surprising him. The protagonist's eyes widen, not knowing how to react to this sudden gesture of affection. Crying heavily, the blonde calls the young man an idiot, complaining that he's pushing his own limits. Meanwhile, the rest of the team watches the scene in total silence, respecting the pair's moment. Breaking the mood, the veteran shooter raises his hand, asking everyone to check their remaining ammunition. The whole group quickly gets organized, checking their equipment before facing the big boss. With renewed energy, the hero takes the lead and walks through the curtain, followed by his companion. Suddenly, strong stage lights turn on, and a mysterious voice welcomes the survivors. An elegant shoe steps onto the stage as the announcer praises the small group's courage and strength. The hunters look up, quite surprised, listening to the speech about combat strategies. A sinister figure reveals a long, macabre smile, showing great interest in human flesh. The villain introduces himself very theatrically, revealing he is the ringmaster of that grand arena. Wearing circus attire, the bizarre beast invites everyone present to participate in his greatest show. Facing the monster, the protagonist warns his allies that the creature's energy is far superior. The young man analyzes the enemy's position, concluding that he truly lives up to the title of boss. With extreme elegance, the ringmaster holds his large hat, eager to begin the chaos. The girl asks if she should open fire, but the leader tells everyone to wait and see the beast's moves. Assessing the situation, the boy notes that the height is bad for their shots and considers jumping up using his power. But he gives up on the idea, knowing he would be a very easy target, while the villain holds his horn. Suddenly, the large beast puts the instrument to its mouth and blows, creating a very loud sound throughout the area. The sound echoes throughout the arena, catching the group's attention as they prepare for the worst-case scenario. Surprised, the hero watches as several purple and sinister flames sprout from the ground right in front of the team. From that dark energy, gigantic rats with red eyes and sharp claws begin to emerge. As the disgusting minions take the stage, the ringmaster announces the grand start of the show. The rookie grits his teeth, understanding the worst part, as this boss focuses on summoning many minions. The protagonist notices the enemy's advantageous position and asks if the platinum-haired guy has anything to blind them. At that, the soldier confirms he has the item, but the young man tells him to wait for his signal before attacking. Suddenly, the large, disgusting beasts begin to snarl as they prepare to advance on the pair. At that moment, the hero tells everyone to spread out quickly while he activates his powerful ability. Transforming his blade, he remembers the pain of being pierced and attacks the giant rat with all his might. The crimson blow strikes the disgusting monster dead on, causing a huge impact in the middle of the arena. However, the boy's eyes widen as he realizes his blade can't get through the enemy's skin. Taking advantage of the young man's failure, the enormous creature repels the attack and quickly moves away across the field. With the great force of the impact, the protagonist is pushed back, his feet sliding across the stage floor. Without losing focus, the young man prepares a new move, spinning his lethal weapon to continue the assault. But suddenly, he realizes the disgusting beast is using its long tail for a surprise attack. At that, the beast launches a very swift strike with its tail, forcing the hero to quickly go on the defensive. Meanwhile, the platinum-haired soldier says he's too busy with another monster to help. The boy says he's fine and quickly concludes that the target's skin is too tough to be cut with swords. He then transforms his weapon into a large hammer, remembering the pain of being crushed before striking the beast. The heavy attack hits the rat's head dead on, dealing a lot of damage and a strong negative effect to it. Taking advantage of the enemy's stun, the rookie shouts for his allies to concentrate all their fire there. Immediately, a shower of bullets and several explosions begin to hit the disgusting monster's body. The blonde complains about the target's resistance, but the old hunter notices that blunt attacks work well. With this opening, the protagonist charges forward again, smashing another minion with his powerful red hammer. The impact of the blow is so devastating that the monster is thrown violently against the arena floor. Despite his great effort, the young man realizes that several other bizarre creatures continue to surround the group. Without wasting time, he expertly swings his heavy weapon, throwing another beast far away. However, the young man gets frustrated when he sees that the beast is still breathing, confirming the target's insane durability. At that moment, a minion tries to pounce, but the hero uses the hammer's handle to defend himself quickly. Suddenly, a very precise shot hits the monster's back, causing a surprising explosion. The old shooter takes down the beast while the girl notices that firearms barely cause any damage to them. The experienced hunter assesses the tense situation, facing the big boss who remains high on the stage. Smiling macabrely, the ringmaster praises the hunters and decides to summon even more allies. Immediately, several purple flames begin to sprout from the ground, scaring the survivors once again. The injured man becomes desperate seeing the number double and shouts for them to use the heavy weapon. The group fires nonstop, fighting bravely to keep the disgusting crowd away from everyone. At that, the gentleman warns that they can't hold back anymore, while the blonde complains about the boss's cowardly attitude. The bizarre villain just stands still up high, calmly playing his horn while watching the fight. Watching the scene, the boy's eyes widen as he deduces that the monster is acting like the Pied Piper of Hamelin. He finally understands the bizarre pattern, noticing that the rat's behavior now makes perfect sense. With a plan in mind, the young man shouts to the blonde, telling her it's the perfect time to use the cat. The hero recalls the fairy tale story, where the musician uses his instrument to drive away the pests. He quickly concludes that those huge minions are playing the exact same role as the rodents in the tale. At that, the girl understands the importance of key items and holds her charm, agreeing with the leader. Quickly, the girl extends her hand and summons the small, glowing feline into the middle of the grand arena. Landing on the ground, the kitten illuminates the place and catches the attention of the terrible, disgusting beasts. Suddenly, the light intensifies, and the feline transforms into a colossal creature, striking fear into those rats. Cornered by the enormous shadow, the disgusting monster freezes completely in terror before the predator. Without wasting time, the enormous cat snatches up the giant rodent with great ease and brutality. Seeing that terrifying scene, the other beasts panic and start to flee the stage quickly. Impressed, the veteran shooter praises the animal's strength, noting that it's bigger than a large lion. Taking advantage of the great opportunity, the hero smiles excitedly and charges with his lethal red hammer. At that, the protagonist looks back and shouts, asking for the platinum-haired soldier's help for the next step. Preparing his attack, the ally tells everyone to close their eyes, while he activates his electric blade. Immediately, a very strong blast of light fills the place, blinding all the enemies present. Caught completely by surprise, the ringmaster recoils, covering his face to protect his vision. Using this perfect opening, the young man leaps through the beam of light, aiming directly at the big boss. Wielding a crimson chain, the boy announces that the villain's grand show has finally come to an end. In a very swift move, the red chains wrap aggressively around the monster's neck. Focusing all his strength, the hero pulls his lethal weapon, showing great determination in that combat. Remembering the pain of being crushed by chains, the protagonist pulls the villain down to the arena floor, with his eyes glowing with anger. The young man lets out a war cry as he continues to pull the enemy. Feeling the impact of the attack, the ringmaster's eyes widen, completely losing his balance. Without mercy, the boy smashes the bizarre boss's body against the floor, creating an immense crater there. Following the plan, the group of shooters unloads all their bullets into the fallen target non-stop. The dozens of projectiles explode on the monster's body, creating a lot of smoke throughout the combat arena. The hero, out of breath, tells everyone to stop shooting and moves forward to check if the threat has been eliminated. But suddenly, a sinister and colossal silhouette begins to rise slowly in the midst of the dust. Even covered in wounds, the villain maintains his disgusting smile, praising the hunter's effort. Standing again, the beast applauds the team's strategy, calling them all top-tier performers. The bizarre master decides to reward that fine fight by announcing that the main act will begin now. At that, the enemy's body begins to swell and grow absurdly, startling the young man with its size. The blonde and the veteran hunter swallow hard, facing the new gigantic form of the boss of that place. The other soldiers are also terrified, realizing the situation has drastically worsened all at once. With a deafening roar, the gigantic villain stomps on the ground, making the whole structure tremble greatly. Facing the colossal monster, the hero ironically asks if his team likes monster movies. The colossal man warns that they will live that deadly experience not as an audience, but as actors. The fearsome ringmaster displays his second lethal form, ready to crush the poor hunters. With a dark laugh, the beast tells everyone to dance and attacks violently with its enormous hand. The girl panics, and the protagonist focuses on a new plan, telling the old man to aim for the horn. Without wasting a single second, the team leader shouts for everyone to fall back and avoid the deadly attack. The experienced gentleman runs with his heavy weapon and instructs the allies to split up so they don't become targets. Leading the tactical escape, the young man advances quickly and divides his team into 3 small, fast groups. Seeing the tactical movement, the giant smiles and praises the hunters' brilliant preparation for the crisis. Following the order, the experienced shooter fires a powerful shot at the gigantic villain. The swift projectile hits the monster's face dead on, causing a huge fiery explosion. Despite the impact, the bizarre boss just smiles, praising the hunter's incredible deduction. As the young man flees, the ringmaster says that hunting prey is what makes it all fun. Reaching a safe place, the group breathes a sigh of relief, while the injured man panics. Keeping calm, the protagonist states that they can win because the real body is the flute. He explains that during the previous attacks, the villain always used the chains to protect the item. At that, the hero recalls that the giant preferred to take a shot to the face rather than let the flute break. The recruit doubts the theory, but the leader notices that the beast's life force doesn't match its colossal size. The boy also reveals that his mental attack failed, proving that the huge body is just a puppet. To prove his point, the young man remembers that the bizarre enemy never spoke in the first-person singular. Smiling confidently, the protagonist explains that this dark world always leaves a small chance of victory. He concludes that the system creates small openings just to see humans fail miserably. Complaining about this sadistic reality, the leader tells everyone to keep moving to the safe meeting point. While they plan a new strategy, the platinum-haired soldier continues to fight against the monstrosity. Using his fast electric beams, the alley shouts for the shooters to dodge the crushing attack. Very tense, the young man forbids any shots so as not to draw attention, while questioning why he is there. Desperate, he flees through the rubble, realizing it's completely impossible to defeat that immense creature. After managing to shake off the immense giant, the platinum-haired man realizes he has a perfect chance to escape. Running alone, the warrior considers abandoning the team and just hiding until the whole massacre is over. Forgetting his own pride, he focuses on surviving, accepting that all his partners will soon be gone. A memory shows that his heroic posture was just a theatrical farce to please his foolish audience. He realized that people gave a lot of money to fake heroes, so he set up this huge lie. However, the cowardly warrior stops running and looks back, wondering why the leader was still fighting. Frustrated, the young man questions the protagonist's great courage, trying to understand the difference between them. At that, the soldier curses his own conscience and runs back straight into that great battlefield. Returning to his tactical squad, the hero is very relieved to see that everyone is still alive. The experienced shooter quickly confirms with the leader if the great weak point of that bizarre villain is the flute. Joining the group, the platinum-haired man doubts the plan, remembering that the giant monster's defense is very fast. Maintaining his confidence, the young man says he will apply his negative effect directly to that bizarre item. He explains that musical instruments are fragile, and any small damage can quickly ruin everything. The gentleman agrees that they don't need to take down the giant beast, focusing only on getting around this huge wall. The protagonist points out that the real problem is the height, as the target looks like a huge building. Observing the destroyed buildings around him, the brilliant leader finally comes up with the perfect strategy. The platinum-haired man asks if the crazy plan will work as the two walk to get the beast's attention. For everything to work out, the first tactical priority is to keep the colossal villain focused only on the two warriors. As soon as the giant lowers its guard, the group of shooters will quickly fire at the master. Walking beside the leader, the fearful soldier asks why the recruit with the broken arm is with them. The boy replies that their injured ally can't fight but is very helpful in finding items in the rebel. The scene then focuses on the sweating young man finding a mysterious panel hidden in the middle of that dark room. The sweating young man stares intently at the panel, knowing that it was exactly what he was looking for. But suddenly, a thunderous noise echoes throughout the battlefield, startling the hunters. The bizarre ringmaster straightens his sinister posture, staring at the environment with a threatening gaze. Sensing the threat, the tense leader warns that the colossal creature has finally noticed their presence. Without wasting time, the huge beast charges forward, extending its gigantic hand with sharp claws towards them. Running for his life, the platinum-haired man fears the monster will destroy the whole building, but the hero focuses only on escape. Keeping his cool, the protagonist shows a confident smile and tells his ally to trust the technology there. With an absurd impact, the creature smashes the surrounding structure, forcing the fearful warrior to back away. The huge shockwave hits the interior of the building, making the injured recruit shield himself from the debris. The plan works, and the ceiling doesn't collapse, confirming the leader's theory that the giant monster is very light. He explains that if the boss were heavy, the floor would sink, so he deduced that the body is like a balloon. With this advantage, the young man activates his red power on the ground, ensuring they can pin the beast in place. Acting quickly, the hunter unleashes a powerful reddish shockwave that hits the villain dead on. The magic's impact directly hits the golden flute in the master's hands, causing damage to the precious item. Watching closely, the boy notices that his negative pain effect has spread throughout the instrument. Seizing the opportunity, the experienced shooter pulls the trigger of his heavy weapon, firing with all he's got. Following the attack, the blonde girl and the other soldiers also unload their bullets on the immense target. The countless bullets create bright explosions right near the giant's hand, trying to focus on the bizarre flute. However, the ringmaster turns his macabre face and looks at the shooters, noticing their strategy. The white-haired gentleman and the soldier panic completely upon realizing they have been discovered. Smiling sadistically, the creature prepares its counterattack, swinging a huge, dark whip. Desperate, the leader realizes his ally's position has been exposed and yells for everyone to run quickly. The whip's swift attacks destroy everything around as the shooters try to dodge the blows. A gigantic explosion occurs on the floor where the team was, kicking up a lot of smoke and debris. Running through the ruins, the tense shooter comments that all this madness really feels like a monster movie. But the tension worsens when the old man looks out the window and sees an intense reddish glow appearing outside. Without much time to react, the tactical group prepares for the worst as the structure begins to crumble. With a brutal blow, the colossal villain destroys the wall, warning that hiding places won't save anyone. The ceiling collapses in pieces, and the veteran hunter narrowly dodges the huge rocks falling right on his head. Outside, the hero assesses the enemy's power, noticing that the whip has deadly bladed tips. Focusing on saving his squad, the leader charges forward quickly and calls his platinum-haired ally to accompany him. However, a magical light barrier appears, blocking the boy's path, who is surprised by the obstacle. The one preventing his advance is precisely the fearful warrior who points his shining sword, blocking the young man. With a crazed look, the recruit says they should give up, as fighting will only result in everyone's demise. Indignant, the protagonist questions that attitude, reminding him that failing the dark test would also spell their end. But the platinum-haired warrior retorts, shouting that trying to survive a punishment game is still a hope. Extending his hand, the coward proposes that just the two of them run away and hide until the combat time is over. With a manic smile, he claims it's much better to sacrifice the weak to ensure their own salvation. Facing his partner, the traitor tries to convince the hero that abandoning the team is the only logical choice. Hearing that absurdity, the young man grits his teeth while clenching his fists, refusing to accept it. The traitor grabs the hero's shirt and begs him to agree with the cowardly idea of fleeing. In total desperation, the platinum-haired warrior demands that the leader admit to being just as scared as he is. But the protagonist just lowers his head with a cold expression as he pushes the ally's hand away. Showing a calm smile, the young man removes his partner's hand and says that he is absolutely right. Being understanding, the hero doesn't deny the truth and says he won't force the recruit to keep fighting. However, the leader steps away, deciding that he can't just run and abandon his entire team. Hearing those words, the fearful ally's eyes widen, completely shocked. The boy then explains that losing teammates ends up destroying a piece of our hearts. Clutching his own chest, the hero laments having let so many people perish in the dark past. He remembers that the survival rate of the last nightmare was so low it was close to absolute zero. Because of that tragedy, the young man refuses to throw away the last shred of humanity he has left. The leader knows that if he abandons his friends now, all those previous sacrifices will have been in vain. At that, the platinum-haired warrior grits his teeth, feeling a lot of anger and frustration with that speech. With a gentle look, The protagonist asks if his partner was expecting a good scolding, but sighing calmly, the hero apologizes as he walks right past the traitorous alley. Quickly climbing onto the wall, the boy says he's not a perfect guy to be judging others. Without hesitating for a single second, the young hunter leaps from the edge, heading straight into the real danger. Falling at high speed, the protagonist focuses on his objective as a red aura envelopes him. Preparing his magical attack, the leader concentrates a strong reddish light in the palm of his own hand. Plummeting from the building, the warrior releases bright sparks, applying a new effect of extreme pain. Flying through the air, the young man mentally asks the veteran hunter to hold firm against the attacks. Meanwhile, the blonde girl continues to fire her shotgun with all her might at the enemy. The precise shot hits the instrument in the bizarre ringmaster's hands, causing damage. Feeling the aggression, the colossal boss grinds its pointy teeth, showing great irritation. With a confident smile, the shooter taunts the villain for leaving its weak spot completely exposed. Looking down at the young woman, the macabre creature praises her courage as it readies its whip. But gripping the deadly weapon, the monster warns that this useless fight is about to end. Fleeing the attacks, the soldiers hold on to the faith that their leader will soon arrive to save them all. Holding her position, the blonde fully trusts that the protagonist survived the building's destruction. At that, the injured old man points his sniper rifle, stating he is very proud of his team. Without backing down, the veteran hunter pulls the trigger, generating a large fiery explosion from his shot. The swift projectile hits the gigantic villain's back, making it tremble in pain from the impact. At that exact moment, the hero lands with great force on the ground, creating a cloud of dust in the arena. Spinning his body, the young man summons an immense red axe and strikes the boss's legs by surprise. Caught off guard, the macabre creature's glowing eyes widen as it notices the lethal attack. However, the beast's skin is too tough, and the boy's magic weapon is deflected without doing any damage. The giant smiles, praising the boldness of the attack, but warns that the young man is now in the kill zone. Immediately after, countless sharp tips from the dark whip rain down on the cornered hero. To save himself, the leader uses his shockwave magic on his own body, launching himself backward. The suicidal maneuver works, and the blades smash into the empty ground, causing a lot of destruction. The ringmaster is shocked to see that the young man used an attack on himself to escape. However, the young man extends his hand in the air and warns that the battle is not really over. Gritting his teeth, he concentrates to endure the pain and prepare a single, big move. Unexpectedly, the injured recruit appears, pointing his weapon at the gigantic creature. The bullet hits the villain dead on, causing a small yellow explosion right on its chest. With that, the monster's body is covered in bright yellow lightning that paralyzes it in place. The soldier celebrates that his plan worked, while the protagonist stares at him, quite surprised. The ally explains that it was worth a try, and that he almost didn't make it in time using the elevator. At that, the young man yells for them to retreat into the building, and the leader agrees as he flees. The soldier explains that he found a gold coin in the building that turned into a bullet when he picked it up. The recruit says he shot it because it seemed important, and the hero realizes it's the piper's reward. The coin paralyzes the ringmaster for 3 seconds, and he gets annoyed with that rare item. The boss warns that it's only a few seconds as the paralysis effect starts to wear off. But suddenly, the platinum-haired warrior appears in front of the monster, enveloped in a yellow aura. The white-haired young man shouts furiously at the bizarre villain right in front of him. The protagonist and his friend look on shocked as they see the platinum-haired man fighting the enemy. The platinum-haired warrior shouts that he didn't run away as he faces the enemy with great determination. The scene flashes back to a teacher asking a young Hakura about his future. Little Hakura shows a drawing of a hero and says he will become one to protect everyone. Back in the present, the platinum-haired man is furious for having remembered that forgotten memory. The villain lands a powerful punch on the young man, throwing him with great force. The boss then warns that a normal stun won't continue to work on him anymore. The protagonist tries to go help his comrade, but the soldier ends up holding the young man there. Lying on the ground, the old man says the enemy's guard is solid and he can't hit the flute. Then the shooter lands a precise shot, right on the monster's hand that was holding the flute. The ringmaster looks at the young woman and says she has earned his respect as a soldier. The shooter smiles confidently and praises the young man for managing to play the hero at that moment. The boss then faces her and says she is truly brave for confronting him in that way. The villain holds his whip and says that is exactly why he needs to do something. The young woman tenses up and grips her shotgun tightly, preparing for the enemy's attack. At that moment, the protagonist runs desperately toward his ally to try and save her. A swift attack from the dark whip lunges toward the shooter, who cannot dodge. The whip strikes the young woman's neck, and the villain says her courage will lead her to ruin. Seeing the scene, the protagonist desperately screams his companion's name, Hanamura. The girl's body is struck by the whip and thrown into the air, already gone. The scene focuses on the shooter's face as she slowly fades away at that moment. The protagonist continues to scream his friend's name with an expression of pure despair. The villain stands over the young woman's body and says that the fall of a hero is a very sad thing to see. With a sadistic smile, the ringmaster orders his whip to take the girl's body. Thus, the young woman's body is pulled by the dark whip and vanishes into the air as if it were dust. But the protagonist charges forward at high speed, not caring about anything else around him. He manages to catch his companion in his arms before she falls to the ground, wounded. With a shocked expression, the young man calls the girl's name, not believing what happened. The shooter was hit squarely in the chest with a fatal wound that cannot be treated. Desperate, the leader denies reality, refusing to accept the loss of his ally there. With her last strength, the young woman tries to say a few words to her shaken friend. Holding the girl, the hero asks what she thinks she's doing at that moment. However, the shooter just looks at him, trying to convey some sense of calm to the young man. At that, the protagonist falls silent to hear his companion's last words. With a sad smile, the young woman says he doesn't have to be the only one to suffer for everyone. Hearing those words, the boy is completely paralyzed and without any reaction. The shooter then shows one last smile of peace and tranquility. Even though she is wounded, the young woman's hand falls limp, and the wound on her chest stops for an instant. The leader just hugs his friend's body, feeling an enormous emptiness take over him from above. The villain comments that of all the pains, that was the one that hit him the deepest. The veteran hunter looks on with anger as the boss says they used all their cunning. The recruit also stares at the monster as it continues to say they tried everything. The platinum-haired warrior is down in the rebel, and the villain states that everyone did their best. The protagonist hugs his friend while the boss says that he, too, did his best. And in the end, the hero watched helplessly as the person he most wanted to protect was lost. The ringmaster mocks the young man, asking if that pain isn't a terrible agony. The old man points his rifle, but knows that just changing positions won't be enough. The other soldier is also frustrated, and the villain says he can't understand them. But the boss offers an end to all that suffering, holding his deadly whip. The monster praises the performance of the hero, Yugo Fushimi, preparing for the final attack. Suddenly, a red memory emerges about a pain the young man can't remember. Another memory appears, questioning if he is afraid to remember something happy. With that, a strange blue light begins to envelop the protagonist and his friend on the ground. The ringmaster is surprised and confused by that new energy that has appeared. A voice explains that the reason for it is the heart that felt that immense pain. The scene focuses on the young woman, who cries in her final moments at that very instant. At that moment, the young man's heart also broke, and a blue flame explodes with full force. Enveloped in the blue aura, the hero says he will make the monster understand all his suffering. The ringmaster is completely baffled by the boy's new transformation. The villain wonders why he can't attack the young man, why he can't deliver the final blow. The monster's body begins to tremble, and he feels that he is very afraid to advance. He realizes that the blue light is telling him something he doesn't know about the hero. The protagonist just stares at him as his energy forces a knowledge upon the villain. The young man explains that this is his greatest pain, something that erases everything and leaves nothing. He activates his personal armament, the form of pain, transforming it into an idle form. The villain is terrified by the new energy emanating from the young hero's body. With that, the protagonist advances, enveloped in a blue aura of pure pain and suffering. Crying, he feels the pain of losing someone precious and says he is losing control. Then a huge creature made of blue energy manifests in front of the enemy. The energy monster roars with overwhelming fury towards the ringmaster. The boss screams in pain and says that this is terrible and that he can't take it anymore. With a cold look, the hero says of course the villain can't handle it. He explains that someone who has never felt pain could not endure that level of torment. The recruit watches the scene, completely shocked by his leader's overwhelming power. The veteran shooter also watches from a distance, not believing what he is witnessing. Even fallen in the rebel, the platinum-haired warrior observes the young man's new strength. The scene then changes to a desolate landscape with a red sky and falling debris. In this vision, the protagonist walks alone, looking exhausted and completely lost. His ally shouts the protagonist's name, Fushimi, trying to snap him out of that trance. Lying on the ground, the hero asks if they finally managed to defeat the enemy. He then looks at his friend's body and apologizes for not being able to save her. The other soldiers approach, concerned, asking how the two young people are doing. The recruit confirms that Fushimi is alive, but there's no coming back for the girl, Hanamura. Suddenly, the two allies are shocked as they notice something very strange. The villain's silhouette appears in the distance, saying that it was a very close call. He reveals that if he hadn't escaped at the last second, that would have been his end. The ringmaster explains that he used a special item called a tooth to escape. The recruit laments that the real body escaped, and the old man says the light blinded him. The hero yells for his friends to run, as he can no longer move his body. The villain then advances with a demonic expression, ready to finish the job. He stands over the young man's body with a sadistic look, preparing for the final attack. But an energy shield appears out of nowhere and blocks the monster's deadly blow. A mysterious woman suddenly appears and lands a powerful kick on the enemy. The impact is so strong that the villain is thrown far away with absurd force. Lying on the ground, the monster seems to have finally been defeated by that warrior. The new character approaches the others and comments that it was a close call. She looks at Hanamura's body and speaks of a 1-minute cardiac arrest. A glowing weapon then materializes and is pointed towards the fallen young woman. The weapon's energy enters the girl's wound and miraculously begins to heal her. The protagonist stares at the newcomer, surprised, and says she finally arrived. The woman, named Rindo, scolds him, saying that's not what he should be saying right now. The recruit corrects him and tells him to call her big sister, Soldier Rindo Rindu. She then faces the enemy on the ground and asks if he was the last monster around. But the ringmaster gets up, holding his flute with a furious look. He plays the instrument and summons several ghostly and purple teddy bears. Rindo faces the creatures and says they've called for backup, but it won't be a big problem. A young man with a magic staff says he needs more help and tells someone to wake up. He then uses an ability called life injection, and his body glows intensely. At that, the young man's body rises enveloped in green energy, surprising his allies. He comments to Rindu that this is overkill, and the woman asks if it feels good. The warrior asks if there are more survivors, and the soldier says there are a dozen with them. The soldier explains that some are injured and others have hidden in distant buildings. Rindo understands the situation and observes the old man and the armed young man by her side. She then orders the two of them to stay there and protect the girl, who is recovering. The veteran comments on the woman's overwhelming presence and asks if she doesn't want help. The warrior smiles and says it's not that there are many enemies, but that there are too few for her. She and the protagonist advance together, shouting a challenge to anyone who dares to face them. The woman faces the monstrous teddy bears and prepares to attack with her staff. With a powerful blow, she destroys one of the creatures with the green energy of her staff. She looks at the other stuffed animals and says they have terrible taste. The warrior then destroys a few more and tells them to come back when they're cute. The protagonist sees a pack of smaller monsters coming and warns his sister to be careful. With a smile, the woman says the timing is perfect because her weapon is well charged. Her staff glows with an intense green energy, showing all its accumulated power. She then unleashes a huge wave of life that advances, destroying everything in its path. The allies watch the scene shocked, and the old man asks what all that power is. The recruit explains that the more she hits, the more power the staff stores for healing. He calls her a unique front-line healer, and the girl interrupts him. With a seductive look, she asks if he didn't mean a healing and charming type. The young man gets all embarrassed and apologizes, while the veteran agrees with the lady. Meanwhile, the hero advances with his red blade, easily cutting through the monsters. His sister comments that his stats may have dropped, but his instincts are still sharp. She praises him for holding on for so long and says he has grown a lot, making her proud. The young man stands among the fallen monsters and says he's lost count of how many times he said it. He shouts with all his might that he is not her little brother, leaving the others shocked. The warrior laughs and says that every little brother says that, but deep down, they are. The ringmaster gets irritated because he can't stop them and needs more reinforcements. The woman notices a strange movement and says the enemy is starting to struggle. She then throws her staff to the young man and tells him to finish the fight once and for all. She also asks him to keep the power moderate, and the hero seems a little concerned. The special ability of the Staff of Ruin and Restoration is about to be activated. The protagonist uses life acceleration and advances with impressive speed. In an instant, he appears right in front of the ringmaster, who is shocked. With a smile, he says she asked him to be moderate and activates the form of pain. He then delivers a devastating red slash right to the chest of the monster before him. The villain desperately tries to protect his flute with his hand so it won't be destroyed. The hero holds his red sword and says of course the monster would try to protect it, but the red energy sword pierces through the enemy's hand with a quick and precise blow. The attack doesn't stop, and the blade continues to advance, piercing the circus master's chest. The sword then transforms into a spear, and he feels the pain of being impaled with full force. The villain screams in pain upon seeing his flute broken and realizes that raising his arm was just a feint. The protagonist just stares at him, confirming that the move was just a distraction. Then he says it's over and that the piper will never take anyone from that place again. At that, the ringmaster's body begins to slowly disintegrate into pieces. In his final moments, the villain only feels the immense pain coursing through his entire body. The hero stands over the destroyed flute as his red aura dissipates into the air. His two companions watch the scene, completely shocked by the outcome of the fight. His sister, Rendo, also watches everything with a calm and satisfied expression on her face. The scene focuses on the young shooter who remains on the ground, recovering from her wound. The young man then stares into space and asks if the enemy finally understands his power now. Suddenly, a system screen appears in front of the young man with some new information. The screen announces that the sequence is complete and the designated enemy has been eliminated. The hero, Yugo Fushimi, receives a bonus to his resistance and agility attributes. The screen also informs him that his personal armament will evolve into a new form. The recruit, Go-Hai, is surprised to see that his arm has been healed and receives a status bonus. The veteran also receives a reward, and his armament manifests as a gun lance. Rendo praises the old man's performance and says he leveled up quite a bit from that. The veteran hunter is confused and asks what they expect him to do with that weapon. Another personal armament manifestation is announced for the young woman lying on the ground. A golden revolver called Hero Academy appears over the shooter Hanamura's body. The two soldiers are astonished by the golden weapon floating above their companion. The group's leader also watches the scene and thinks of his friend's name with great affection. With a smile, Rendo tells her brother that he has been blessed with good teammates. Suddenly, the sky begins to crack, as if it were made of shattering glass. The space shatters into crystal fragments, and the woman says that with this, it's all over. The two allies look up at the sky as it dissolves into crystals. Not understanding what is happening, a message announces that the demonic fall has ended, and night appears in the sky. The final report shows that there were 232 casualties in that event, but fortunately, 48 people managed to survive that whole tragedy. The scene then cuts to the platinum-haired warrior who is sitting amidst the rebel. His name is Hikaru Hasakura, and his status is shown as alive, but he seems frustrated. Elsewhere, someone punches the ground in anger, screaming and asking why. A mysterious figure praises the person's talent, who shouts that it was cheating. She complains that if Rindo hadn't shown up, the victory in that test would have been hers. Two other figures call her a sore loser, and the girl in the mask gets very annoyed. A giant skeletal monster appears and calls someone an idiot as a cauldron appears out of nowhere. At that, a small figure falls right into the boiling water of the magic pot to cook until it falls apart. A villain in a mask watches the scene, silently as the creature thrashes around in the hot breath. The masked man tells the girl that technically, that last blow should count as her defeat. He explains that she should have left the flute in a place where the heroes could attack it directly. The villain says that throwing the item away to escape breaks the fairness of the game and should be a foul. But the young woman with the cat mask complains, upset, and says they are being very mean to her. The man then tries to calm her down, praising the incredible scenery and the giant form of the circus boss. With that, he suggests that instead of being angry about the defeat, they should praise the boy's efforts. Showing his sharp teeth, the masked man cracks a smile, saying it's wonderful to see the hero there. The three mysterious villains happily agree with the idea as they watch everything with dark gazes. Through a crystal ball, the group continues to watch the protagonist after so much time away. Another hooded villain named Sage stares at the magic sphere, unable to take his eyes off the young man. The enemy's glowing eye focuses only on the young hero, showing a sick interest in him now. At that, the skeletal monster gets excited, stating that he will be the next one to play against the survivors. But someone slams their hand on the table, denying the creature's request and making the atmosphere very tense. The little girl raises her hand excitedly and tells everyone that she will be the next to face the group. The giant doesn't like that at all and grumbles that it's not fair, because he's not satisfied. However, the smiling villain asks them to let the young girl play one more time and have fun with the situation. The woman in the mask agrees and says that this way, the big monster will have more time to prepare. With a frightening smile, the girl says she accepts the deal as long as she is the new host of the game. The three-eyed giant accepts the terms, growling with anticipation to get on the board soon. The magic sphere displays a vision of a destroyed city as the villains plan something grand. At that moment, the scene changes to the sun shining brightly in the skies of an empty metropolis. The rays of light pass through the window of a quiet room, peacefully illuminating the environment. In bed, the young shooter begins to wake up slowly after suffering that fatal attack. She opens her eyes, confused, and realizes she is resting safely in a very clean hospital bed. Still weak, the girl feels someone holding her hand firmly and tries to say something quietly. She notices that the protagonist has fallen asleep, sitting in a chair right beside her bed. The young man wakes up slowly with a very tired look after spending the whole night taking care of his friend. He is startled to see that she has woken up, and the girl smiles, confirming that she is much better now. Desperate, the young man asks if anything hurts her, but the girl finds it funny since he was the one who healed her. Suddenly, the young man's sister enters the room and announces that the patient will be discharged early the next day. The warrior holds a basket full of fresh fruit and congratulates the girl for winning the battle. She also says that her brother will be able to sleep in a real bed, but he tries to argue, embarrassed. With a smile, the woman pats his head, saying that the boy wants more love from his big sister. The young man is completely embarrassed by the joke as the warrior says goodbye to leave them. The next day, the entire group gathers at a cozy restaurant for a meat feast. The shooter, very excitedly, tells everyone not to hold back on the food because she's paying for everyone. The recruit thanks her happily, while the old man grumbles that barbecue is heavy for his age. The young man comments to the shooter that his sister has always been strong like that since he met her. At that, the woman asks if they are having fun while the girl points out that her phone is ringing nonstop. But the warrior just glances at the screen and tells them to ignore it, as it's just more annoying interview requests. Ending the call, she says she's on vacation, so the protagonist whispers to his friend to be careful. He explains that the warrior buys meat for people she likes, while the old man is startled by the high flame. The shooter gets all excited, thinking the woman likes her, but the young man warns about the risk of recruitment. At that moment, the platinum-haired man observes the whole situation in silence with a slightly bothered expression. Suddenly, the hero's sister places her hand on the young man's shoulder and thanks him for taking care of her little brother. Donning her drink, she states very seriously that she has completely changed her opinion of the boy. With a gentle smile, the warrior says that if he was capable of doing that, he should have said so much sooner. But the platinum-haired man looks away awkwardly and confesses that it was the protagonist who really made him move. He asks the woman to tell her brother not to make others remember silly things at the last minute. Taking another sip of her drink, the warrior closes her eyes and asks the young man to never forget that. The woman praises the warrior, saying that there is absolutely nothing silly about him or his actions there. Hearing those sincere words, the platinum-haired man's face turns all red, and he clicks his tongue, embarrassed. Outside the restaurant, the woman says goodbye to the group and thanks everyone for coming to dinner. She takes the opportunity to announce that if anyone wants to become a soldier and risk their life, they just need to contact her directly. The old man is very happy, holding an autograph, while the platinum-haired man feels sick in the background from drinking too much. The shooter then approaches the veteran and asks what he plans to do with his life from now on. The older shooter touches his own shoulder and comments that he has been feeling very good since he leveled up. Holding his new glowing weapon, he states that it would be a great waste to let that rifle rust. Putting the weapon on his shoulder, the old man suggests they meet again on some hunting ground in the future. The protagonist watches his companion leave while listening to a piece of advice not to get taken out before that day. Staring at his own hand, the young man confesses to the shooter that running from that whole tragedy wouldn't have helped. He reflects that if he ran, other people would fight in his place, and he realizes they are the ones who deserve to live. Clenching his fist with great determination, the hero affirms that this whole nightmare needs to be ended. The girl is surprised when the young man announces that the next day he will hand in his resignation letter. With a gentle smile, he reminds the girl of when she said he didn't have to suffer alone in battle. The protagonist confesses from the bottom of his heart that those comforting words truly saved him. Walking away, the young man thanks her for everything and says goodbye, asking his great friend to stay safe. Desperate about the hero's departure, the shooter extends her hand and shouts, asking her companion to wait. But at that exact moment, a hand grabs the young woman's shoulder firmly, stopping her advance. The warrior appears behind the girl with a dark expression and says that now things are going to get serious. Giving a confident smile, the protagonist's sister announces that it's finally time for the after party. She watches the boy walk away and asks if the shooter doesn't want to know what really happened to him. The young woman is completely shocked and asks if the woman is talking about the first great tragedy of the past. The scene then shifts to a cozy bar where the two girls are sitting and talking. Just then, a bartender approaches, and the hero's sister orders a bottle of a very strong drink. The sharpshooter feels a bit awkward because the place doesn't have a menu, and she has no idea what to order. So, the dark-haired woman orders a cocktail called a grasshopper for her companion. The young woman is amazed by the drink, which looks both super sweet and cute at the same time. Meanwhile, the warrior throws back a glass that's 40 6% alcohol all at once. With a sigh of relief, she slams the empty glass on the counter, startling the sharpshooter. At that moment, the woman asks what the girl thought of seeing the protagonist in a real fight. The sharpshooter gets thoughtful for a moment as she watches her glass being refilled. She remembers the young man and describes him as calm, strong, and very used to battles. But above all, the young woman says that the way he fought looked incredibly painful to watch. The sharpshooter looks the woman in the eye and says the young man's combat style had the very shape of pain. The warrior then reveals that her brother acquired that skill in the middle of the first nightmare. Not understanding, the young woman asks what the other means by being in the middle of the nightmare. The hero's sister explains that large-scale demonic outbreaks are quite long and then lights a cigarette. With that, she says that the beginning was chaotic and that the young man had already lost his parents when they met. The woman says the image of the young man, all beaten up with a knife in his hand, will stay with her forever. She explains that the first test for survival was simpler. All you had to do was not panic. The survivors just observed the types of monsters that appeared and how they behaved. They needed to understand what drew the attacks and what let them go unnoticed. The warrior and the boy just held their breath and thought of nothing in order to survive. Soon after, they noticed the items, and she found a crossbow while the young man found a knife. The woman believes he found other weapons, but chose the one he was most familiar with. The warrior reveals that the boy's father liked to camp, so he knew the basics of survival. On the other hand, the woman was a scout and had a habit of looking after younger kids like siblings. But she confesses that wasn't the only reason she got so close to that boy. Amid the chaos, she felt she needed to become his family, even if it was forced. The woman explains that no one can survive alone because, at some point, you lose your reason to live. And that's a fatal mistake, especially when you're inside one of those demonic outbreaks. The sharpshooter understands perfectly, as her own family situation is also very complicated. The warrior apologizes for prying and mentions the sharpshooter's father's condition. She reveals that the young woman's father has an incurable illness and that, on top of that, her mother disappeared. Even with government help, the girl dropped out of school to work and pay the hospital bills. The young woman says it's okay because she was never very good at her studies anyway. At this, the woman says soldiers make good money with a salary, hazard bonus, and performance pay. She explains that once you reach the silver bear class or higher, making millions isn't difficult. The warrior admits it sounds suspicious but says she's only telling this to her and the veteran. Revealing that the protagonist told her everything, the woman says the girl has the talent and strength to fight. With tear-filled eyes, the young woman hears that they desperately need more allies. Putting out her cigarette in the ashtray, the woman's expression changes, and she says she'll rephrase her proposal. The warrior then looks at the sharpshooter and asks her to stay by her brother's side. She explains that she can no longer be there for the boy because she has climbed too high in the ranks. As a gold lion class, she needs to be ready for outbreaks in large urban centers. The woman also says she made the same offer to the veteran, but he kindly refused. Then she looks squarely at the girl and says that with the young sharpshooter, the situation is very different. Suddenly, the young woman slams her glass hard on the counter, getting everyone's attention. Chugging the bottle all at once, the sharpshooter drinks all the alcoholic beverage without stopping. Angrily, she says the woman doesn't need to try and manipulate her with expensive drinks. The young woman yells that she's not going to stand by because she also cares a lot about the protagonist. She's furious about the young man's farewell and wonders what he meant by "stay safe." Annoyed, she complains that he still treats her like dead weight and feels undervalued. With a red face, the girl says he should just admit he's scared and ask for help. Everyone in the bar watches the scene in silence, while the bartender looks a little frightened. The sharpshooter calms down and confesses that when she drinks, she gets a little wild, which is why she holds back. But since she was invited, she warns that she's going all out and expects the other to keep up with her until the end. The hero's sister just gives a satisfied smile and raises her glass, accepting the challenge. With a gesture, she asks the bartender to bring another bottle of the same drink for them. The woman says not to worry, because she never leaves anything on the shelf when thinking of her brother, and so the two make a toast and decide to drink until dawn, while the warrior smiles happily. 5 days later, the scene cuts to the city of Nagoya, showing a traffic sign. The sharpshooter is on a motorcycle and comments that they are right in the middle of an outbreak zone. The protagonist, riding on the back, asks what the plan is, and the girl brings him back to reality. The young man is startled to learn she has a driver's license for medium-sized motorcycles. She reveals that the motorcycle was a gift from his sister and that it's great for bad roads. The young man then says they need a plan to increase their stats and armaments, but he explains that those things only improve by fighting inside a demonic outbreak. With that in mind, the hero states that they first need to get used to their weapons. The girl gets super excited and declares that it's time to train with her hero's pistol. He asks if there's a place to practice shooting in the city, and she confirms that there are guilds. Showing her soldier emblem, she explains that they can use the training grounds for free. As they arrive at a place with a large dragon statue, the young man announces that they've arrived. They look at the Nagoya Guild, and the sharpshooter finds the architecture very bold and unique. The protagonist warns her not to cause any trouble, as rookies are easy targets around there. The young woman asks if he thinks she's a troublemaker, but admits she might get into a fight or two. She says she'll finish them if she has to, and the young man says that's what he was talking about. A group of 3 guys calls them flashy rabbits and town rookies. One of them even asks if the 2 newcomers are couple and glares at them with contempt. The trio's leader puts on a set of brass knuckles and gets ready to cause trouble for the rookies. With a crack of his knuckles, he warns that they'll have to learn an important lesson in this place. With a wicked smile, the bully says the first lesson will be about knowing their limits. Inside the guild, a staff member checks their documents and classifies them as rookies. She is surprised to see that the young man has already been through 2 outbreaks and that they both have armaments. The woman asks if the information is correct, but the protagonist says it's all exaggerated. Upon seeing Rendo's recommendation, the woman and her coworker are completely shocked. The young man is startled to hear that he is one of the first survivors of that great nightmare. The staff member apologizes for doubting him and quickly hands them their member cards. She explains that lodging and basic training are free, with additional paid options. The standard is 4-person dorms separated by gender, which leaves the sharpshooter confused. She suggests they share a double room to save money, but the young man refuses on the spot. He decides to get separate rooms because they'll be training, and he doesn't want to get worn out. The receptionist guides them and informs them that the content of the beginner training is always the same. The test is a solo simulated battle to assess the rookie's power level. The staff member explains that they must use their armaments for the data to be accurate. The rules are simple, they just need to defeat any enemy that appears in the arena. She warns that even without physical injuries, hits count as damage and affect the score. The sharpshooter asks if she can rank up with a high score, but the test doesn't promote anyone. The receptionist also warns that the enemy's attacks cause pain, like stun guns. The young woman asks how much it hurts and finds out it's enough to make some people give up. A blue energy enemy appears, and the sharpshooter prepares to give it her all in the fight. From an observation room, a man notices that the young sharpshooter's battle has already begun. Other soldiers comment that they'd rather watch the cute girl than the other new recruit. The young woman fires her golden weapon with impressive precision at the enemies in the arena. Her shots hit the blue monster square in the head, creating bursts of energy. In the observation room, one of the soldiers praises the girl's triple shot, saying it was good. The group's leader agrees with a smirk, stating that her shot wasn't too bad. Suddenly, a giant, muscular enemy appears in front of the sharpshooter without warning. The young woman keeps firing without hesitation. but her shots don't seem to have any effect. The bullets explode on the monster's body, which continues to advance without a scratch. The sharpshooter wonders why the enemy didn't go down even after being hit by her. The system informs her that she needs to increase the power or aim for vital points to win. With determination, the young woman looks at her weapon and remembers that it's a powerful personal armament. She recalls how she knew how to use the weapon the moment she received it during the last fight. With a confident smile, the sharpshooter tells herself that she can do it again. The young woman runs towards the giant monster, preparing for a much bolder attack. The observers are shocked to see the girl advance even with a long-range weapon. The sharpshooter thinks that watching the protagonist fight made her realize something very important. As she slides across the floor, she reflects that there is no strength without taking some kind of risk. Dodging the monster's attack, the young woman states with certainty that strength without risk doesn't exist. She fires her weapon at point-blank range, creating an energy blast that hits the enemy. In the observation room, the soldiers' jaws drop when they see she blew a hole in the monster's chest. The leader of the observers smiles and finds the girl's display of power interesting. He realizes her weapon gets stronger the closer she gets to her target. The young woman used a point-blank shot and is now complaining that it hurt enough to make her cry. At this, the man stands up excitedly and shouts for everyone to hear that he really likes the rookie. 20 minutes later, the battle ends, and the system congratulates her on her good work. A voice informs her that she got a good score, but was also hit many times. He continues, saying that in a real battle, she wouldn't have made it, but the young woman doesn't care. The man calls her back and says he'll offer her an extra bit of foolishness as a reward. She turns around and is surprised to see a group of soldiers approaching the arena. The one in the middle explains that they requested a match and can start right away if she accepts. The young woman faces the challenge with courage, and a voice praises her for her boldness and determination. In the control room, the boss proposes a bet to make things more fun. The proposal is for her to fight them one at a time, and if she beats just one, she wins the bet. Her jaw drops when she hears that the prize money is 100,000 per victory, but if the girl can't defeat any of them, she will become his subordinate. The group of soldiers says they'll treat her well and get her in shape to survive. The sharpshooter calculates that if she beats them all, she'll win 500,000 in total. Suddenly, the whole place starts to shake, and the men wonder if it's an earthquake. The group leader is also surprised and doesn't understand what's happening. But the girl realizes it's not an earthquake and that, in fact, it's all over. In the other training room, a man in a lab coat is lying on the floor near a boot. The protagonist leaves the room and apologizes for causing a scene, saying he got carried away. The sharpshooter recognizes him and asks in surprise who those people next to him are. The man in the lab coat gets nervous, not knowing what to say about the current situation. The wall behind him is completely cracked, showing the hero's power. The girl then explains to her partner about the bet they just proposed to her. The young man listens to everything with a serious expression, showing no apparent reaction. With a smile on his face, the leader finds it a very fun and interesting bet. At that moment, the hero asks if he can join the bet. Surprising his friend, he turns to the group and repeats that he wants to get in on the challenge with his partner. The group's boss sees no problem and says it's fine with him if the rookie participates. The young man says that individual fights are a hassle and suggests they fight all at once. The group of veteran soldiers stares at the two rookies in the battle arena. One of the veterans calls him a white rabbit and gets ready to start the fight against them. A system voice asks for a moment to create fake weapons based on their data. The voice explains that the lethality has been removed, but the weapon's performance has been replicated. They receive a dagger and a pistol, and the system announces that the others are already ready. The young man holds the training weapon and thinks that they are very careful with the rules. Wielding the dagger, the hero announces that they can start whenever they're ready. The opponents smile wickedly and prepare to teach the two rookies a lesson. The 5 soldiers quickly advance to attack the 2 rookies in the training arena. The protagonist calmly observes their advance, holding his training dagger firmly. He notices that 3 of the opponents are from the Black Eagles, an elite unit. Leaping into the air, the young man transforms the replica of his weapon, called the Form of Pain. The young man dodges the attacks, and his weapon transforms into a scythe, hitting all 3 of them. With a single swing of blue energy, he knocks down his opponents, who are left surprised. The weapon's ability replicates the pain of tripping while running, immobilizing the targets. He quickly turns to the 2 remaining soldiers as the others fall to the ground. The last opponents are stunned, seeing their comrades defeated so easily. In an instant, the hero's blade stops right next to one of their necks, startling him. With a serious look, the young man warns them not to try to recruit his partner again. He adds that they shouldn't do it without asking for her permission first. Meanwhile, the sharpshooter fires at the other 2 soldiers, who defend themselves. She laughs, saying it's embarrassing, but continues to fire her weapon relentlessly. One of the observers comments that those rookies aren't rabbits like they thought. The group's boss crosses his arms and admits there's no way they can win this fight. At this, he hands a stack of cash to his assistant, who is quite confused. The man says it's 500,000, and to give it to the 2 of them, as they are a great find. Later, in a restaurant, the young woman excitedly counts the cash she won. She's shocked to confirm it's 500,000, and her partner tells her to put it away. The young woman apologizes for her excitement, but he understands, as they aren't exactly rolling in money. She comments that soldiers must make a lot to be throwing around so much cash at once. The girl asks if he knew who the man was, and he notes the strong Nagoya accent. The young man shows on his phone that the man is Jinzab, a famous and skilled fighter. He confesses he hesitated to accept the bet because he didn't want to embarrass them. The young woman apologizes for not thinking straight, but he says that guy has a boss vibe. The protagonist believes he and Rindo would get along well, as the man seems generous. The hero explains that making a good impression as a young talent was a great move. The girl notices the place is crowded, and a man points out that they are all soldiers. The young man explains that civilians are leaving the cities, and soldiers are gathering. On top of that, fewer restaurants are open, so places naturally get crowded. She asks if it will be hard to find allies, and he says that just being there doesn't mean they'll fight. The hero then explains that there's a strategy called cleaning up, or scavenging. First, they wait for strong soldiers to waken the enemies in a battle. After victory is almost certain, they jump in to eliminate the leftovers and gain EXP. He says there's a debate about it, but it's common for rookies without their armaments. The young woman agrees it's fair not to expect them to risk their lives on their first try. With that, the young man concludes that the visible number of soldiers doesn't mean much. What matters most is building bonds of trust with those who will actually fight. Back at the guild, Jinzab laughs loudly upon learning the rookies want to head into battle tomorrow. The next day, they thank Jinzab for his guidance and offer a small gift. The man asks his men if they taught the rookies anything since they were crushed. The hero says they learned a lot, and Jinzab states that they were the ones who started the fight. The young man says nobody cares, and that they obviously already know who he is. The group leader smiles and asks if the plan is to attack first, and that's why they sought him out. He confirms they are heading straight into the fight, and Jinzab praises their courage, treating them as guests, but he warns them to be prepared and points to some memorial plaques in the room. Those plaques are in honor of all the soldiers they have lost in battle. The pair stares at the memorials in silence, understanding the weight of the situation they're in. The veteran warns that the front line is no joke, as dumbs appear in the sky. A Class A demonic outbreak is happening simultaneously in Sapporo, Nagoya, and Fukuoka. The protagonist and his partner speed on their motorcycle towards the dome, because the time has come. The young woman is surprised by the 3 outbreaks at once, as it wasn't in the forecast. Suddenly, the young man's phone rings, and it's Rindo asking if he's in Nagoya. He confirms, and she tells him she's in Sapporo, and that this is the biggest outbreak in years. Rindo warns him that under these conditions, there's a chance certain people might show up. She forbids him from fighting if he encounters them, and tells him to wait for a Gold Lion-class soldier. The young man finds it funny that she's saying that, and she replies that it's just a sister's concern. He understands her concern and wishes her luck before entering the purple dome. The two observe the reddish, gloomy environment of the demonic outbreak around them. A female voice comes out of nowhere and greets them, calling them Big Bro and Big Sis. A girl asks if they can help her, as she's in a difficult situation. She is dressed like Alice and is standing next to a bird-like creature. The protagonist senses a familiar and sinister atmosphere coming from the girl and the bird. He remembers feeling the same thing during his first nightmare. With a wicked smile and glowing eyes, she calls him the Dormouse of the foolish parliament. The first sequence of the test begins, and the mission is to escort Alice to the Queen's chambers. The sharpshooter concludes it's an escort mission, a type she has never done before. The young man says it's an annoying test, because it tests protection more than brute force. Alice approaches with a strange smile and offers them a small bag of candy. The hero accepts it right away, leaving his partner completely surprised by his action. He explains that if an event character offers something, it's either a key item or a support item. The young man takes the bag of candy and decides to save it for now, not knowing what it's for. He picks up a radio for internal communication, since there's no contact with the outside. Jinzub answers and confirms that they also entered and found a creepy little girl. They realize the setup is the same, and that each group has an Alice to escort. The veteran complains about the fairy tale theme, and one of his men makes fun of him. Jinzub asks for their location and realizes they are on opposite sides of the dome, far from each other. The hero tells them not to worry, as splitting up was his idea from the start. The leader agrees, as it's the standard play since a large group increases the difficulty. That's how, during the first nightmare, the self-defense forces were completely wiped out. Over the radio, the young man announces that 2 gold lions are there to help, and the veteran is pleased. These 2 powerful warriors are known as Amaru and Sago. The protagonist becomes thoughtful upon hearing about their presence in the area. Jinzub reports that Amaru came from the north, but doesn't know where Sago is, as he acts alone. The young man then remembers Sago and says they've met, and he'll try to join up with him. At that moment, the veteran warns that enemies are coming and hangs up the radio. His last message is for them to stay alive, because everything starts from here. Immediately after, enemies resembling card soldiers surround the group. The hero then shouts for them to go west, while protecting the little girl, Alice. He activates his personal armament, called the Form of Pain, and transforms it. With this, the young man uses his ability to smash one of the soldiers like a hammer. His partner is amazed by the increased damage, and he tells her to cover the rear. The young woman agrees and summons her personal pistol, the powerful hero's braver. She fires without hesitation, and the shot pierces through the body of one of the enemies. But a soldier in red armor with a large axe approaches them. The sharpshooter then slides across the floor to dodge the knight's attack. With a point-blank shot, she manages to blow the soldier into several pieces. Alice praises their bravery, and the young man asks if she has any guidance. Suddenly, the protagonist is startled by something that appears on the city's horizon. A gigantic dark castle appears in the middle of the city, leaving everyone confused. They quickly realize that the sinister structure is their final destination. The little blonde girl tells them not to worry as they run toward the objective. Along the way, the ground beneath their feet begins to crack and break apart. The ground opens up into a huge hole, and the entire group starts to fall. His partner panics, but Alice remains calm, riding on her bird. She asks what to do, and the young man says falling is normal in Alice in Wonderland. He explains that the fall will be long, and that they need to do something while they fall. The young woman is hit by a jar and notices that several jars are falling with them. The hero stays calm and asks the 2 NPCs what's inside the jars. With a sinister smile, Alice lists various types of jams and spreads for toast. The protagonist observes the falling jars and decides to choose a specific one. He then reaches out his hand and grabs a jar that was apparently empty. The young man holds the jar firmly, preparing for what's to come. He then shouts the name of the contents, which was actually orange marmalade. The jar explodes in an orange light, creating a large pool that cushions their fall. The two are covered in jelly, and he comments that it was better than hitting the bottom hard. They realize they are at the bottom of a well, just like in the original book. Alice celebrates that they didn't turn into jelly, and the sharpshooter tells her not to be creepy. With no time to rest, the girl points to a path and tells them to follow her. Just then, a white rabbit wearing a red vest and glasses suddenly appears, looking at them. The protagonist is surprised to recognize the animal and alerts his partner to its presence. Then, the small animal starts running at high speed down the long, dark corridor ahead. With that, the hero wastes no time and moves quickly, opening the large wooden door. The sharpshooter is confused when she sees the place, as there are several doors of different sizes. The young man notes that some are useless and concludes the rabbit has already disappeared through one of those paths. At that moment, the little blonde girl slams a purple bottle on a table, getting their attention. She then breaks into a smile and tells them to drink it all at once, despite the skull symbol. The two of them start to sweat, seeing the dangerous label, and the young man asks if she's serious. With a frightening look in her eyes glowing blue, the small NPC confirms the order without hesitation. The hero tries to confirm who should drink the strange potion, and Alice points out that only one will. The young woman finds it all very suspicious, but her partner believes the liquid won't be fatal to whoever drinks it. He remembers the original story and concludes that this is the potion that makes the body shrink. The young man points to the middle door with a padlock and explains they need to find the key through the others. The sharpshooter notices that half of the passages are tiny, and he reinforces that shrinking will be necessary, but the idea of splitting up is bad, so the young woman suggests they each drink half of the mysterious bottle. However, the little blonde girl complains about the delay, warning that the rabbit will get away if they keep stalling. At this, the young woman wastes no more time and snatches the bottle from Alice's hand, quickly making a decision. She chugs the entire bottle, drinking it all at once, while the protagonist watches in shock. A mysterious smoke begins to cover her body, and the young man shouts his partner's name. The smoke clears, and the girl smiles, saying he would have drunk it for her, so she decided to act first. Now she is tiny and states that they'll split the risks in half, since they're partners. The hero looks at the small sharpshooter in silence, understanding his friend's courage and loyalty. With that, he turns the handle of a large door, figuring they won't need to clear all the rooms. The young man enters the lit room and deduces that there are only two main routes there. The young man explains that the challenge wants them to explore both paths in parallel and simultaneously. In that instant, the protagonist's eyes widen as he deduces something important about the place's structure. He comes face to face with more card soldiers and realizes his main route is focused on combat. Then the young man summons red magic in his hand and says he's counting on his partner's help. Meanwhile, the young woman runs through a stone tunnel with her weapon in hand, searching for the hidden key. She suddenly stops running as she remembers the chain door had only one lock. The sharpshooter hides behind a rock and wonders what the objective of her ally's route could be. Just then, she peeks around the corner and finds giant insects in suits playing cards at a small table. A huge, elegantly dressed praying mantis holds its cards while analyzing the play on the table. The young woman is completely shocked to witness such a bizarre scene in the middle of the dark path. The insect stands up, making strange noises and making the sharpshooter feel disgusted by the situation. She starts running in desperation as the flying monsters chase her through the stone corridor. The young woman screams that they are gigantic, but soon realizes that she was actually the one who shrank. To make matters worse, huge hairy spiders start falling from the ceiling. surrounding the girl from all sides. She screams in terror upon seeing such a disgusting insect coming out of the wall that it ended up being censored. The girl fires at the monsters and warns them not to underestimate her because she has a dark past. Then she remembers that in her childhood, she was a true insect, hunting demon, taking them all out. But a giant spider appears in front of her, forcing her to run desperately away from the danger. At this, the sharpshooter fires a point-blank shot, destroying the monster while admitting she's scared to bits. With that, the young woman continues her frantic escape down the corridor as the bizarre swarm pursues her. At that moment, she finally finds the coveted golden key lying on the stone floor of the area. However, the adventurer lifts the object with difficulty, noticing it's too heavy to carry. Then the small partner comes across a chasm in the path, not knowing exactly what to do. Meanwhile, the hero also reaches a dead end in front of a large brick wall. He touches the structure and deduces he didn't take the wrong path, feeling something strange in the masonry. Just then, the young man notices a hidden crack between the blocks and understands the trick of this challenge. The young man peeks through the hole, calling his partner's name in hopes of finding her. With the key in her hands, the young woman hears his voice and runs towards the sound, saying she's close. She finally spots her ally's giant face through the hole, and he confirms that the path has ended. The sharpshooter tells him she found the item, but complains about its weight, while fleeing the band of angry insects. Then the hero prepares his red magic and confirms if her corridor is completely straight and flat. He tells the girl to get down on the ground when he gives the signal to unleash a devastating attack. At this, the protagonist concentrates his energy and shouts, giving the order for his partner to take cover. A colossal red spear pierces through the tunnel, crushing the monsters with the power of perforation. The young woman huddles down, holding the golden key, as the energy beam grazes just above her. The young man asks about the situation, and the young woman says the attack managed to hit most of the insects, but she warns that the beetles clinging to the walls and ceiling are still alive and advancing. With that, the hero orders her to touch the glowing energy spear immediately, without hesitation. Though confused, the small girl raises her hand and touches the burning magic hovering over her head. The protagonist feels her touch and confirms the connection, focused on the next step of his plan. Then he changes the shape of his ability, calculating the exact distance to hit the targets. Several red spikes sprout from the spear, piercing everything around like sharp blades. The magic spreads through the tunnel, mercilessly piercing all the insects that tried to escape. With this, the giant monsters are torn to pieces by the lethal branches of that powerful attack. The sharpshooter is impressed by the thorny structure and deduces that the threat has been eliminated. At this, the young man says he's going to retract the magic and tells his partner to run back to the exit. The adventurer jumps through the hole in the wall, landing safely in the palm of her giant, Allie's hand. The hero turns with her held safely and says it's time to return to the main hall of doors. Sitting in his hand, the girl observes the destroyed corridor, still processing the insane combat. She notices the bodies of the crushed monsters and recognizes that her friend has become much stronger now. The protagonist looks at his partner in silence, making sure they are both okay after all the chaos. As they cross back into the hall, the potion's effect wears off, and the young woman returns to her normal size. Alice and the bizarre bird celebrate the doe's return, noticing the golden item has been recovered. The young man jokes about her experience in the tiny world, and the young woman says it felt like a punishment. Without losing focus, they insert the key into the large lock, unlocking the final passage. With the door now open, the group continues, walking towards the bright yellow light ahead. The place is dark and covered in large chains attached to thick tree trunks. A furious brute smashes a cup in his hand and yells that he has tight deadlines too. Just then, a giant rat agrees with the bearded man, showing its huge, sharp teeth. The three newcomers stare in confusion at the strange meeting scene taking place there. The angry man lifts a small rabbit and complains about the lack of condemned prisoners for the queen. Several humans are tied up and suspended by heavy chains above their heads. Then the blonde girl decides to intervene, telling the cowards to do something about the problem. The bazaar group that was having tea is surprised by the voice, demanding to know who they are. The rat approaches the white rabbit, deducing that the rookies might be more fresh prisoners. The protagonist analyzes the situation and isn't sure if the creatures are enemies or event allies. With that, the brute in the top hat tells them to speak up if they don't want to cause trouble. The hairy man explains that his irritation is due to them not meeting the required prisoner quota. During his fit of rage, he throws a jar that ends up hitting and annoying the hero. Just then, the young man notices the jar is full of sugar cubes and offers candy to little Alice. The bearded man is confused by his strange behavior, not understanding where the sugar came from. The young man holds out a small bag of candy, stating that it's tasty candy and should be shared. Soon, the brute calms down with the treat, chewing happily and easing the tension in the place. Alice claps her hands at her ally's clever idea, realizing that sweets relieve great stress. Then the hero sits at the table with the tamed beast and asks what was making him so desperate before. The man answers bluntly that they are worried because of the few prisoners that have shown up. He explains that they need to gather at least 30 criminals that same day, and the deadline is short. At this, the protagonist deduces that these victims are being taken to the queen, who loves executions. The creature agrees and points to a chained woman with a glowing purple mark on her forehead. The young man realizes with horror that all those imprisoned people failed the demonic trial. With a dark look, the brute faces the group, showing the seriousness of the whole situation. He confesses that if they don't follow the brutal orders, he and the rat will be the next victims to be sentenced. Alice is outraged by the group's attitude, vowing to file a complaint about them to the queen. The group's leader tries to calm the little girl, warning her that she has no idea of the sovereign's fury, but the sharpshooter eggs her partner on to keep fighting, certain that this is the right path in the test. Suddenly, the bearded man's gaze changes completely, overflowing with an intense threat. He snaps his fingers and warns that the group will find out firsthand if what they say is true. Immediately, the earth opens up, revealing bizarre mushrooms with little arms coming out of the dark soil. The young man's partner gulps and finds the large mushroom-shaped enemies quite appetizing. Just then, a strange smiling apple appears and quickly sticks to the protagonist's head. The hairy man points at the hero and decrees the start of the feared and deadly trial of apples and mushrooms. The strange creatures begin to run towards the young man, making the mission and its difficulty very clear. And to make matters worse, the creature in the top hat explains that the smiling apple will explode every 30 seconds. The two are startled by the insane explanation, not understanding the reason for such sadism in the trial. On the other hand, the sharpshooter notices that she herself is forbidden from crossing the yellow light barrier on the floor. The sharpshooter quickly understands the dynamic and concludes that her friend will hunt the monsters while she handles support. The brute is impressed with her quick perception, as she immediately took on the role of the Legend of William Tell. With no time to waste, the duo gets into position, ready for combat, and the group's leader declares the start of the lethal test. Immediately, the horde of mushrooms advances, and the evil apple on the hero's head opens its huge smile. He realizes the enemies are scattered at different distances, but trusts his partner's incredible precision. Then, the young man shouts for her to get ready to shoot the apple, which makes the young woman nervous due to the imminent risk. With an agile move, the protagonist delivers a quick and lethal slash, destroying two monsters with just one blow. At this, he summons the form of pain again, transforming his weapon with an intense glow. The hero throws himself into the air with the scarlet sword, materializing a solid wall of energy. He uses the red barrier as a shield to crush the enemies, aware that the rules didn't prohibit defense. The sharpshooter smiles at his strategy and aims her pistol, focusing all her attention on the apple bouncing on her partner's head. With surgical precision, the young woman fires a perfect shot straight at the fruit, delaying the feared explosion for a while longer. The hero is filled with confidence from his friend's flawless support and charges back in with his lethal sword. Then he lands a swift side blow, cutting down 2 more bizarre mushrooms with just one move. The charge is so fast and powerful that a spray of energy erupts from the monsters across the green battlefield. Meanwhile, the girl wastes no time and quickly reloads her pistol, focused on protecting her ally's head. She lands the next perfect shot, forcing the apple to back off and extending their precious combat time once more. At this, the protagonist notices that only the giant mushroom on the horizon is left and focuses his gaze on the last enemy of the test. Suddenly, the monster erupts from the ground with a boom, kicking up a cloud of dirt and showing off its enormous size. He freezes in fear upon seeing the true scale of the threat, realizing the battle will be much harder than he imagined. The enemy's huge arms rise, creating a menacing shadow and throwing rocks in all directions. The bearded brute gives a mocking smile and warns the sharpshooter that the mushroom has a dangerous surprise hidden inside. Then the enemy leader's red eyes glow, revealing that its huge crown is protected by massive tentacles. Despite the size difference, the young man doesn't back down and wields his sword, telling his partner to prepare the next life-saving shot. The young man dodges swiftly, narrowly escaping the furious impact of a huge arm against the ground. At this, he uses the form of pain to parry the consecutive attacks that rain down mercilessly, masterfully blocking them all. However, the monster increases its speed, swinging multiple limbs in a crushing whirlwind, leaving no room to react. The protagonist is forced to jump non-stop, unable to raise his shield to defend against the relentless barrage. With time running out, only 10 seconds are left, and the cursed demonic fruit on his head is already smiling. Desperate, the sharpshooter warns him of the danger, telling her friend to protect himself with the magic shield. She confesses that aiming at the jumping apple from that distance at high speed was impossible, demanding that he stop moving. The young woman locks her gaze on the fruit, tense, as the tentacles could crush him at any moment if he stopped dodging. With no other choice, he announces he will give up his defense, going all in with a kamikaze attack against the giant boss. His friend trusts the hero's sacrifice and gets into position, ensuring she'll be ready to fire. The young man then unleashes his scarlet magic, releasing an explosive shockwave at the center of the immense creature's base. The girl trembles with fear at the destruction, but doesn't take her eyes off the small, dangling apple, waiting for the perfect moment. With dust and light blocking her view, the sharpshooter loses the target amidst the chaotic darkness and tentacles. Just then, the shadows created by the reddish glow make it hard to see through the blinding dust. Meanwhile, the countdown begins at 4 seconds, making the situation even more desperate. The hero who had attacked prepares himself and calls her name as the deadly timer hits the final 2 seconds. The evil apple lets out a sinister laugh, marking the final moments of its feared countdown. Without losing his cool, the protagonist mimics a gun with his hand, pointing it towards the creature. Immediately, the stone wall behind it explodes as a powerful golden beam pierces through it and destroys the monster. The boy slumps to the ground, panting, as pieces of the creature fall across the devastated area. Just then, a familiar voice comes from the hole, ironically asking if the rookies were having trouble. A smiling, gray-haired man approaches while the hero remains panting on the ground. He enters the area escorted by huge and powerful silver, armored knights protecting his advance. The young man introduces himself as the older brother, saying he arrived to save little Alice with his army. This warrior with a gentle smile is actually the famous Gold Lion-class fighter named Kurame Amaru. With his hands in his pockets, he calmly observes the remains of the destroyed boss at the base of the dark chasm. The sharpshooter watches everything from a distance, jaw dropped at the overwhelming outcome and the sudden appearance of this alley. Relieved, the hero asks Amaru if improvising by breaking through the labyrinth wall still counted in the end. Then the little blonde girl gets annoyed and calls the hero's attention, questioning the brute's presence. She says that Aimaru doesn't belong in this particular story, showing her disapproval of the absurd intervention. Alice points her finger furiously, shouting that you can't have two main characters acting together on the same stage. The other girl retorts that she doesn't care about those rules, while holding onto Kareem's arm with an ironic expression. The gray-haired man asks them to drop the subject and focus on the main objective. But the bearded brute in the top hat intervenes fearfully, reminding them that the queen's orders and rules must be followed. The warrior smiles, saying he doesn't care, and ignites a powerful purple energy in his hands as he faces the creature. At this, he reveals a rope weapon with a sinister aura, stating with a sadistic look that he will take them all out. Seeing the danger, the bearded man raises his hands in terror, surrendering and declaring that everyone is safe to pass. Kareem returns to his friendly demeanor, confessing that he interfered because he couldn't bear to see little Alice having a hard time. Noticing the warrior's indignant expression at the comment about not letting her suffer, the little blonde responds by glaring at him angrily. The sharpshooter, in turn, reflects in silence, seeming embarrassed by the tension of the moment and her own inaction. The young man decides to be cordial and officially thanks Soldier Aimaru for his valuable interference, clearing up all the confusion. The knight offers his hand for a handshake, pointing out that it's normal for warriors to help each other during missions. He says goodbye with a wide smile, mentioning his joy in seeing the return of the first survivor after 8 long years. However, he throws out a sharp taunt, noting that the hero didn't seem to have fully recovered his instincts, leaving an arrogant tone. Kareem gently takes his little companion's hand, asking her to accompany him on the journey. The warrior cracks his neck in frustration, watching the young man show off after that grand and unexpected rescue. With a suspicious tone, he refuses the offer of an escort, saying an elite combatant should handle fights alone. The hero refuses to be protected, warning that the mission must still be only halfway through, and that Aimaru could be more efficient alone. Even with the blunt rejection, the knight tries to maintain his friendly pose, although the heavy atmosphere was evident. At this, he turns with his protege, as a huge golden double door appears out of nowhere on the path ahead. Aimaru looks over his shoulder with the girl, assuring her that she won't be taken out for breaking the labyrinth's normal script. Finally, the pair passes through the illuminated passage, diving into an intense glow and ending the tense scene. A ray of yellow light fills the room as the shimmering door disappears before the relieved eyes of the protagonist and his partner. The sharpshooter takes a deep breath, relieved by the departure of that conceited guy, but can't hide the shock she felt from his strong presence. She remembers with fear the legend surrounding Aimaru, about him possessing a powerful and extremely rare tamer-type armament. The warrior agrees with her while analyzing the army of silver knights, imagining how many that leader must have already accumulated. The gray-haired man smiles confidently, because he alone is basically an entire army. The sharpshooter asks if it was a good idea not to join him, but the young man mentions some very bad rumors. He explains that the warrior's taming ability is very similar to brainwashing. The hero fears that the targets might not just be enemies, preferring to avoid any careless alliances. Just then, the brute in the top hat reappears, and the protagonist demands he free the imprisoned hostages. The bearded leader agrees, sweating, saying they have no choice but to comply. With the chains broken, the group of survivors falls to the ground, trying to catch their breath. Suddenly, a red panel announces bonus rewards, leaving his partner completely confused. The young man analyzes his newly gained attributes, aware that the real battle would begin now. The young woman also receives a bonus to her skills, as the hero tells her to focus. Although she agrees, the sharpshooter recalls the desperation she felt just a short time ago and gulps. At that moment, her eyes widen as she receives a notification that her weapon is about to evolve. The protagonist touches his friend's shoulder, stating that this was the power she so desired. He takes the opportunity to apologize for the last test, confessing he put too much pressure on her. The girl gets flustered and waves her hands, saying it was all her own fault for panicking. With a gentle smile, the young man calms his partner, saying that fear was normal in that situation. But he highlights the young woman's strength, stating that she can endure fear and risk her life. Then he gives her a light, encouraging punch on the chest, showing all their mutual trust. The young man holds out his fist, entrusting his own life to her and taking responsibility for hers. He smiles, asking her to risk it all without hesitation, as he accepted the great dangers. Tears of relief form in the sharpshooter's eyes, feeling the great weight lift from her shoulders. The young woman quickly wipes her face and turns around, promising she would do much better next time. With a determined smile, she guarantees she will shoot without fail as the second phase begins. Immediately, the entire group starts running, with the mission of taking little Alice to the castle. They spot the immense dark fortress just ahead, under a red and frightening sky. His partner asks about the other soldiers, but the hero says communication has been cut off. He supposes the gray-haired warrior deviated from the path to rescue more lost survivors. The young man observes the entrance guarded by card soldiers, noting that a direct attack would be a bad idea. The young woman is impressed by the huge variety of unknown enemies protecting the royal castle. Suddenly, a sinister laugh echoes through the air, and a bizarre smile floats in the darkness above him. The hero focuses his hearing, trying to track the origin of that macabre sound coming from the wall. He runs towards the sound, stating that it was the famous smile without the cat from the story. The young man explains the reference to the classic tale, guiding the team to the source of that hidden voice. The sharpshooter understands the plan, deducing they just needed to follow that creepy sound. Upon reaching a tower, they look up and come face to face with a huge pink feline on top. The creature displays a bizarre smile, being the exact distorted representation of the Cheshire Cat. The protagonist notices that the story's order has changed, but decides to follow the strange creature's hints. Just then, the enormous feline floats in the reddish air and launches a slashing attack straight down. The powerful impact shatters the brick wall, revealing a new secret passage in the tower. The young woman fears it's a trap, but the hero trusts that this hole is the right way to go. The hero analyzes the place, deducing that this area was created by Dorothy's distorted mind. He decides to enter, warning that the creator pays a lot of attention to the smallest details of the entire scene. The sharpshooter is completely confused by his statement, questioning who her partner was talking about. Just then, a woman in red shoes appears, complaining that the whole situation was very worrying. The pair peeks from behind the red curtain as the mysterious voice grumbles about the low quantity. They observe several people tied up in suspended cages, descending towards a huge guillotine. The bizarre environment is fully watched over by frightening statues of hooded executioners. The stained blade gleams, indicating that the place was ready for a magnificent execution. Then the tyrant reveals herself to be the terrible Queen of Hearts, marked as the main enemy there. The giant ruler bellows furiously, claiming that the number of sinners was not enough. The young woman is frightened by the boss's size and readies her weapon, but the hero demands she wait. He agrees that the reddish giant is the final monster of that area, remaining very cautious. The young man explains that they haven't received the mission to fight yet, deducing there would be an event first. He suggests they stay hidden and observe, but someone steps out from the hiding spot. The little blonde girl comes out from behind the curtain with the bird, pointing her finger and accusing the queen with great anger. The evil ruler turns her head, completely confused by the little girl's immense audacity. The pair steps out from the curtain in shock, as the hero realizes this was the mandatory event. The giant in the red dress faces the small group, questioning how they managed to get in. She calls for the captain of the guard, demanding answers, but the soldier just trembles in fear without explaining. The villain concludes there was a very serious security breach and snaps her fingers, completely irritated. Immediately, the other soldiers grab the captain as the leader decrees a lethal sentence. A huge iron maiden filled with sharp spikes opens, preparing to devour the guard, the lead soldier is thrown hard towards the deadly spikes, suffering the punishment for his mistake. A large amount of red spray erupts through the hall, leaving the partners paralyzed in shock. The evil woman fans her face with a stained fan, praising the small group's courage. The queen thinks they are looking for trouble, but the little girl retorts, complaining about the excessive executions. The little one questions if the enemy didn't have anything better to do, which makes the giant laugh a lot. The tyrant explains that the moment someone passes on is the most beautiful thing, and she loved to watch it. The villain compares taking lives to a simple tax collection, stating that running away was a sin. The little girl yells that you can't have tea if you're gone, accusing the woman of being a sinner. The giant ruler listens to the great accusation in total silence, fixing her gaze on the intruder. The enemy points her closed fan, stating that the girl talked too much, challenging her to prove it all. A mysterious aura appears in the place as the tyrant decrees that this would all become a trial. The big boss positions herself at a large judge's bench, ordering them to call a good witness. Very confidently, the little one accepts the challenge and summons the sharpshooter to testify. Causing astonishment, the young woman appears at the witness stand, sweating from nerves and trying to use the logic of her own world. The sharpshooter bravely states that a ruler's primary duty was to focus on protecting the people. Gaining more confidence, she points her finger, guaranteeing that a breach of trust would cause a rebellion. Protagonist is impressed by the excellent argumentative basis his partner was using. However, the hag rejects it all, saying she doesn't know that law and that the human didn't decide anything there. The queen questions the existence of a parliament, laughing at the attempt at a civilized conversation. The sharpshooter realizes it's no use arguing and runs to hide, calling for her colleague. The hero approaches, aware that he was dealing with a completely autocratic ruler. He states with conviction that he was not a citizen of that place, but of a nation called Japan. The young man makes it clear that as a foreigner, there was no reason to obey the laws of that kingdom. The evil woman is unfazed, arguing that they were inside her great territory. However, the young man smiles firmly, warning that the true story was the complete opposite. He slams the table, declaring loud and clear that the place where they stood was actually Nagoya. The little blonde girl and his partner are impressed by their friend's major argumentative twist. The hero points out that she had invaded and built the castle in the middle of Japan without permission. He concludes by pointing out that the woman in red was not the true queen, but a usurper. Furious with the accusation, the villain raises her arm, considering that audacity a huge sin. Before she could attack, a large explosion echoes from above, bursting the iron cage. A red sign announces that the foundation of royal authority has been destroyed, freeing everyone. The young man smiles, noticing the card-shaped enemies are completely dazed and confused on the floor. The tyrant screams furiously, feeling all the power of the fortress and her great army diminishing. Seizing the chance, a strong blow smashes the floor, clearing a path in the main throne room. The protagonist watches in admiration the sudden and very brutal arrival of a new great force. A man in a suit steps firmly on a guard while the woman notices the soldiers turning into dolls. The giant ruler stares into the smoke, asking if the attacker was her true target. Surprising everyone, the warrior in a suit enters with a giant hammer. Accompanied by his army, he smiles mockingly, wearing his glasses, and praises the hero for having led the situation. The combatant confesses he was trapped, but soon summons his men to begin the great advance. With the advantage on their side, the ally prepares himself, indicating that the story's climax had arrived. The queen writhes in hatred, releasing lightning from her body and cursing the audacity of the rebel group. She states that authority comes from strength and prepares for the great final combat against them all. Without hesitation, the young hero once again summons his scarlet blade, assuming his combat stance. The partner in the suit also advances with fury, leading the all-out charge against the troops. With the opposing soldiers surrounding the group, the fierce battle begins right then and there. The hero is confident of victory, declaring that a ruler without honor would fall, and summons all his power. Amid the chaos, the leader in the suit shouts, ordering the great revolution to begin against the enemy. The sharpshooter raises her ready pistol and asks what the grand plan would be against the giant army. Wielding his red sword, the protagonist shouts for everyone to intercept the main force and hold the front line. The leader in white and glasses wastes no time, taking the lead of the attack and declaring the first strike. The short-haired girl cheers for his success, shouting from a distance as she watches him charge forward with everything he's got. The man delivers a crushing blow, creating a large explosion of light and destroying one of the statues. He smiles, impressed by the weight of his own attack, feeling that his immense strength had not yet weakened. A guard tries to counterattack, and his sword is blocked by the giant hammer, praising the powerful blow of the A-ranker. The man in the suit retaliates, smashing the card soldier in an intense exchange of lethal attacks. Amid the great confusion, the protagonist senses a new threat and shouts for everyone to watch out for imminent danger. The powerful warrior smiles, assuring the team's protection and telling everyone not to despair. He reveals his group of well-armed henchmen, proving that his crew is also dangerous. The partner confidently states that there is no reason to worry about these enemies. However, he warns the hero about the opponent's surprising and challenging abilities. A soldier charges forward, but the big guy defends the blow, wielding his hammer with ease. The protagonist notices with impressment as the experienced ally pulls a huge nail from the hammer. With the immense weapon wielded, the warrior declares that he will dismantle the opponent's entire defense. In a swift move, he shatters the guard's armor, spreading blue sparks and a lot of force. The sharpshooter partner smiles in relief, noticing the absurd and overwhelming level of the man in glasses. The brute reveals the trick of dismantling armor using the huge nails he pulled out. Without wasting time, he calls his henchmen, giving the order to attack with one of the magic nails. The subordinate advances and hits the powerful glowing stake directly in the center of the enemy's armor. With the weakening in effect, the guard's defense shatters, creating a flash in the hall. However, another guard tries to surprise the protagonist from behind, laughing maliciously. The sharpshooter warns that the blue stakes also work as a power buff and prepares to fire. The protagonist attacks the enemy that surprised him, summoning a red spear to pierce him. Using his special magic, he transforms his weapon, releasing an intense, reddish energy. The young man delivers the finishing slash, ending the opponent in the blink of an eye with a spray of energy. A second guard tries to attack, but the spear soon changes, transforming into a long and dangerous scythe. With the new weapon, he slices through the threat, showing total mastery and versatility in combat. Right after, the sharpshooter aims and launches a concentrated explosive shot from up close, hitting the target. The big warrior praises the duo's synergy, encouraging them but also warning them about the queen. The leader in the suit parries one attack and blocks another, maintaining total calm in the middle of the great battle. He laughs, noticing the opponent's guard is down, calling him a weak little rabbit as he prepared. Suddenly, a huge purple mass covers the hero, rising directly from the fortress's dark floor. The protagonist is shocked upon realizing the threat, noticing the ineffectiveness of his strikes and cuts. He quickly discards an explosive attack, noting the enemy's probable and rapid regeneration capability. Thinking quickly, the young man decides to innovate, pulling all his strength to form a new blade. The weapon takes the form of a large cutting circle, focusing on speed for a swift lead sweep. The powerful sweep breaks the henchman's legs, spreading a purple cloud in the center of the castle. Even with the successful blow, the young man finds himself surrounded again by 3 approaching enemies. He notes the distance to his allies, confirming the urgency of facing the new threats all by himself. Concentrating his magic, the hero summons the Ship of Pain, changing his weapon into a reddish whip. The powerful attack whips all 3 enemies together, disintegrating them in a violent purple blast. After getting rid of the henchman, the queen charges forward with everything, launching a brutal purple blow. However, the tyrant missteps, slipping after a sneaky maneuver executed by the warrior in the suit. He takes advantage of her fall, wielding his hammer and attacking her without a shred of mercy. The massive blow from the golden hammer hits her squarely, causing the giant to try to protect herself. The hero prepares himself and sees the big guy smashing the giant nail right into the center of the enemy's royal scepter. Excited by the opportunity, he notices the success of the blue stake and throws himself in with a lethal attack. The big partner smiles, confirming that the scepter was ridiculously sturdy. The villain faces the invaders, demanding to take out at least 5 more enemies and conjuring flames on the floor. At this, huge flaming lobs appear out of nowhere, raising the entire battlefield to a new level. The hero is amazed by the extreme change in the arena and tries to balance himself on the newly created structure. He realizes that this trap of boiling copper was reminiscent of a terrible torture from ancient China. The brute warns that the closer to the target, the hotter and more dangerous the ground became. Desperate, the protagonist understands they can't stall for long there, or they'll be toasted alive. So he advances with speed, throwing the red scythe at the giant enemy. The attack hits squarely, but the leader laughs at the attempt, considering the blow as weak as a mosquito bite. But the effect kicks in the moment the tyrant is hit, and she screams, retreating in a daze. The sharpshooter celebrates, realizing that her ally's pain ability worked very well there. Taking advantage of the opening created and the enemy's distraction, the big guy advances with his heavy hammer. Without hesitation, he drives another golden nail with force into the center of the tyrant ruler's body. The impact of the second stake pushes the boss back and makes her scream from the immense pain as she retreats furiously. The hero continues in an intense fury, attacking the villain's face again, who has no time to retaliate. With another opportunity, the man in glasses expands his hammer to its maximum possible size. The giant tries to react, raising her scepter in a desperate defense with the intention of stopping the enemy. The nail's strike breaks her defense, spreading a devastating shockwave throughout the entire room. The warrior smiles, confirming the success of the plan, cornering the woman even more. The hero, for his part, thinks he won't even need to try too hard, thanks to his well-trained allies. However, the sharpshooter points in shock, warning that Amaru's silver cavalry had finally arrived. The gold lion-ranked soldier himself materializes in the middle of the smoke behind the queen. The giant ruler celebrates the debuff and the arrival of the strong combatant, seeing a chance to turn the tables. The demon's skull smiles bizarrely among the flames as if victory was already certain. But in the real world, the hunter's base detects a large and unexpected magical anomaly. A black spot covers the sun, creating a mysterious and chaotic glow over the entire city. The monitoring system operator panics, not understanding what was happening there. His colleague confirms that the negative energy had plummeted rapidly, indicating a bizarre failure. The attendant understands the situation with horror, alerting everyone that the true demon lord was coming. A drastic warning appears in front of the soldier, informing them of a mandatory interruption event. Everyone tries to fight against the red orders, focusing completely on resisting the screen's commands. The hero uses all his strength to hold firm, warning that this threat was something much bigger. However, the young man's eyes widen as he realizes the red visual orders were almost unavoidable. He shouts for everyone to be alert for any danger while the queen backs away, confused. The henchmen on the ground feel the terrifying tremor of a strong magical presence coming from the floor. A huge purple rift opens in the flames, and a skeletal creature ascends from below with its hands on its chest. The fleshless monster with a terrifying aura faces the warriors and declares that the real show was about to begin. In the blink of an eye, an extremely fast luminous attack hits a henchman's neck, piercing him. Another soldier is hit squarely by a blast that tears through the man's chest without giving him time to scream. The subordinate feels the impact of the surreal speed and falls to his knees, realizing the huge disadvantage. The skeletal demon attacks brutally, eliminating several henchmen at once with its absurd speed. One of the red-haired allies falls to the ground, wounded, not understanding anything that just happened. Just then, the big guy in glasses sees his partner down and gravely injured on the arena floor. Then he desperately screams the name of his fallen comrade, who was called Masa. Suddenly, the shadowy figure attacks the big guy before he could have any chance to react. The skeletal monster says, "My bad," as his intention was just to give the warrior a light tap. With a bizarre smile, the creature reinforces that he just wanted to do it very gently. At that moment, the protagonist observes the situation and prepares for combat with his red weapon. The young man faces the enemy with a serious and completely determined expression. The young man has a vision of a scene of destruction, with the demon triumphing over the bodies. The monster's face is reflected in a broken crystal, showing all its cruelty. In that vision, he was alone, facing the powerful adversary in the midst of the destruction. Snapping out of the trance, the young man screams the name Ricardo with all his hatred and charges to attack. He rushes towards the creature with his blade glowing intensely red. With a powerful blow, the young man tries to hit the creature with his reddish, energy-filled weapon. The monster blocks the blow easily and even praises the young warrior's attempt. The enemy says he likes the young man's killing intent, as the young man gets even more furious. He then uses a new technique, simulating the pain of being hit by a shield with great force. His weapon changes shape and transforms into red gauntlets for a direct and potent attack. Next, he uses the pain of being hit by a truck to strengthen his next attack. The monster is hit squarely by the attack and seems genuinely surprised by the young man's power. With that, the creature is thrown far away by the force of the devastating blow's impact. But even after being hit, the monster starts to laugh manically as it flies through the hall. The adversary praises the protagonist's intensity and calls him Alway, revealing that he already knows him. The sharpshooter watches from a distance and shouts the hero's name, Yugo, with concern. Suddenly, the queen appears behind the young woman, telling her to shut up and calling her a sinner. The tyrant prepares a purple magic attack and warns that her execution wasn't over yet. With her eyes glowing red, she glares at the sharpshooter with pure hatred and a thirst for revenge. However, the gold lion soldier appears and tells the queen to focus on the enemy in front of her. He warns that if she doesn't focus on him, she'll be taken out, and thinks about how a demon made everything a problem. Another hunter thinks the protagonist's action was good because it saved many soldiers there. The soldier wonders how long the young man will last and decides he needs to defeat the queen. He faces the ruler and mentally asks his comrade not to fall until he finishes the fight. Meanwhile, the intense battle between the protagonist and the skeletal demon continues at full force. The young man manages to block a powerful attack from the creature, creating many sparks in the clash. The monster seems excited about the fight and says it's been a while since he's had this much fun. The young man realizes the enemy is specifically targeting him and wonders about the reason for it. They exchange more blows, and the monster encourages him to continue, calling him by the name Yugo. The young man realizes his attacks aren't working, and that his attributes haven't returned to normal yet. Determined, the hero then decides to try a new type of attack to surprise the adversary. The young man summons the pain of being pierced by a spear to create a new lethal blow. The weapon transforms and hits the monster's chin squarely, who seems slightly surprised. Right after, he uses the pain of an explosion to launch a massive red energy attack. The young man hits the enemy's head at point-blank range and hopes to have caused some damage with it. But the creature appears behind him in the blink of an eye and says it's time for payback. The protagonist defends himself with the scythe, blocking the powerful punch with a gigantic impact. With this, he realizes the enemy is on a completely different level in every aspect. The young man understands he doesn't stand a chance in a direct fight. As the monster asks what he thought, the adversary comments that this Dorothy person worked very hard to create this battle scenario. He continues, saying it's difficult because the soldiers are very smart and know how to play the game, because they find loopholes in the rules and use them to attack the monster with red chains. The weapon transforms again and adds enormous weights to crush the creature to the ground. The young man observes the immobilized opponent, who complains that it's not right to lock everything down like that. The enemy says that cheating is part of the game, and that he leaves loopholes for everyone to take advantage of. But the protagonist questions who would take advantage of something like that, as the monster asks if he didn't like it. The young man attacks and says that a game where you lose and are taken out is just torture, but the demon disagrees. The enemy says that a game without lives on the line is when it gets most exciting and prepares a deadly attack. The creature brings its claws close to the hero's face, asking if he doesn't agree with that. Suddenly, an energy shot hits the monster's head, interrupting its final attack. The creature looks to the side in surprise and wonders where that sudden attack came from. The sharpshooter is the one who fired, and she's proud of herself, saying that was a very good shot. The shot finally hits the creature right in the head, setting off a small explosion. The monster is surprised and wonders who could have shot it from that distance. Elsewhere, the big guy rushes forward with a blue energy attack against an opponent. With a smile, he calls the skeletal demon a miserable thing and compliments the courage of whoever attacked it. Nearby, the sniper takes aim with her weapon, saying that this was for her subordinates. Her two companions swear revenge, their eyes filled with determination and fury. The big guy in the white suit dodges an attack from an enemy with dreadlocks and looks annoyed. Then, he readies his blue energy hammer to crush a small, smiling demon. He stares at a blue stake in his hand and comments that the enemy here was also a monster. The little demon finds himself trapped by several stakes and complains that they were interrupting him. The big guy then says he purposely ruined his moment with the hero. Moments earlier, the Gold Lion rank soldier ordered a full barrage of fire. At his command, the soldiers with cannons unleash a massive volley of energy attacks. The queen is hit by multiple explosions, but still manages to stay on her feet with her scepter. Even so, the ruler screams in agony, feeling the overwhelming power of the combined attack. The big guy watches in shock at the firepower that defeated the boss so easily. The elite soldier concludes that this is the power of a Gold Lion rank, but knows it's not over yet. Suddenly, the queen is enveloped in a purple aura, and chains appear around her. She then reveals her second form, now imprisoned by a heavy execution device. Without hesitation, the squad leader orders his men to fire again with everything they've got. A new wave of explosions hits the villain, who bravely withstands it in the midst of the chaos. With eyes red with rage, she calls them all fools and says their insolence has gone too far. The man in the suit despairs when he sees it didn't work, and the leader realizes she's a special boss. He understands that to defeat her, they need to use the execution device cleverly. The soldier thinks he could beat her with brute force, but that would take too long. With that, he changes his plan and asks a little girl named Kuno to go help the hero. The leader says that Alice will open a portal so she can support her teammate. The sniper then shouts that she's going to join them too and runs toward the portal. The soldier just tells her to do as she pleases, and Kuno warns that the demon has already taken down Gold Lion ranks. He warns her that she probably won't make it, but the girl ignores him and fires a powerful shot. The glowing projectile flies across the battlefield as the hero fights the monster in close combat. The creature feels the impact and finds the power contained in the projectile that hit it strange. It wonders how a bullet from so far away can feel so heavy and considers it might be a new expert. The demon then smiles, thinking that this ability must have some serious drawbacks, and gets excited. The sniper reveals that her hero's pistol has transformed into a full sniper rifle. The girl reflects that unique weapons are strange, but hers has become the power she always wanted. She remembers a past test where she couldn't make a shot and decided she needed a rifle. The young woman thought self-guided bullets would be the solution, but soon realized she was wrong. She then understands that every shot she fires carries the weight of lives on the line, and that never changes. The young woman knows that if she misses the target, the hero's burden increases, and the end draws near for everyone. The sniper knows this is the risk she carries, and there's no escaping it. She decides to face the danger using her special ability, which gets stronger with distance. However, If the bullet misses the target, part of the shot's damage comes right back at her. The projectile hits the monster square in the head, causing an explosion of golden energy. With a manic smile, the young woman celebrates the hit and says that was seriously scary. The big guy realizes this isn't normal power and that his ally is risking her life. With a smile, he says, "Looks like it's his turn to risk his own life in the fight, too." The warrior then raises his unique weapon called the Dismantler, which glows with blue energy. He uses the stake on his own head, activating a secret and powerful ability. With that, an aura of power explodes around him as he shouts, releasing his limits. The hero is shocked, wondering if his ally just pulled a screw out of his head. The man with glasses announces he'll have 300 seconds of power in exchange for a major overload. His stats increase drastically, but he knows his body will break if he goes past the limit. The young man understands that a timed power buff is a reasonable move in this situation. He thinks this is their only chance of victory, while the leader holds back the queen. The skeletal demon seems impressed and says they finally made a decision. The creature then says it also needs to use its abilities and unleashes a dark aura. The hero watches his ally in the white suit, ready for the battle to come. The monster manifests its demonic armor, creating a sphere of purple, chaotic energy. The magical equipment reveals itself as a bone serpent with a terrifying green aura. The hero is startled when he sees the equipment and yells for the little girl Kuno to be very careful. The big guy explains that this weapon appeared in the first nightmare and took out 3,000 people. The young man says they need to hold on for 5 minutes until the leader defeats the ruler. The monster charges forward, and the partner comments that the situation is tough because of the snake. The skeletal serpent stretches its body infinitely and lunges to attack the hero. The creature's body moves like a whip, destroying everything in its path. The young man is amazed by its speed and realizes the weapon moves freely across the field. He understands that one bite from that thing means it's over and that they can't take a single hit. The serpent's body acts like a buzzsaw, destroying everything it touches with its blades. In addition, the creature uses the spot it bites as a pivot point to move better. With this, the serpent can move the demon's main body with great agility in the air. The hero understands that the weapon moves in all directions like a grappling hook. While the demon attacks the young man, the big guy rushes to help with his energy hammer. He hits the serpent with a powerful blow, breaking part of its skeletal body. The young man notices that a strong hit can break the weapon, but the severed part just slows down. Then, the destroyed pieces of the serpent begin to regenerate with a green energy. The hero is frustrated because it's useless, as the weapon reconnects instantly, and the enemy taunts him. The creature stares at him and asks if he's thought about how he's going to deal with the bone serpent. But the big guy smiles and says of course he has, as he readies his weapon again. The man in the suit then charges forward, ready to attack the serpent with his blue ability. His weapon transforms into a giant wrench, ready to tighten and crush something. He uses his wrench spin technique and clamps down on the serpent with the energy tool. The blow creates a shower of sparks and pins the creature's body tightly in mid-air. The young man watches in surprise as the bone serpent is completely immobilized by his ally. The monster is surprised by what's happening and doesn't understand their strategy. The big guy explains that he used a debuff to loosen the joints of the enemy's weapon. Because of this, the serpent won't move properly for 3 minutes and will get weaker with each hit. The hero understands that debuffs work better on weapons than on the opponent's bodies. The demon compliments their skill and says they trained very well for this. The creature then decides to give up on stretching the weapon and uses it as a bone axe. The monster attacks the hero with the coiled serpent, but the young man blocks the blow with his weapon. Meanwhile, the man in the suit attacks the demon from behind with his heavy, blue hammer. The blow lands squarely on the enemy, who is sent flying by the devastating impact. The serpent begins to freeze because of the power of the suited warrior's attack. The demon is thrown far away and hits the ground hard, part of its body freezing over. The young man notices the enemy's pressure has lessened, and that his partner won't be pushed back. He wonders if the enemy has any restraining moves, but quickly dismisses the idea. The hero knows that chains don't work, and that big attacks take a long time to activate. He understands that if he doesn't choose the right moment, the attack will be completely useless. Just then, the sniper fires again, hitting the demon square in the head with precision. The girl watches from a distance, focused and ready to provide the necessary support for her friends. The monster is hit and momentarily stunned by the impact of the powerful projectile. The big guy seizes the opportunity and smashes the demon with a massive blow from his hammer. The hero praises his ally's shot and tells his partner to fall back immediately. He then transforms his weapon, creating a whirlpool of pain around the fallen enemy. The creature watches the red energy form around it with a curious look. The monster is swallowed by the vortex and gets trapped in a continuous attack of pure pain. The demon screams in agony as it's dragged and wounded by the young man's powerful technique. The man with glasses is impressed by the attack's power, finding it rare even for a high ranker. The hero says this is his limit and that he won't let the enemy escape his whirlpool. The creature is trapped in the red water and can't get a foothold to escape. The young man knows the water pressure will take away the monster's control and that his power has increased. He decides he's going to seal the enemy right there, using all his remaining power in the attack. But suddenly, the young man senses something strange and stops, concentrating his power on the whirlpool. He notices the water level is dropping, even though it doesn't benefit the demon. The creature reveals that its bone serpent is a big eater and is devouring the water. The magical equipment then uses its infinite devour ability to suck up all the energy. The hero panics as he realizes his technique is being drained by the enemy's weapon. The big guy yells at it to shut its big mouth and prepares to attack the demon. With all his might, he smashes the monster's head with a final blow from his heavy hammer. The big guy is shocked to see that his attack didn't work as he expected. The demon survives the blow and prepares to counterattack with a dark aura. Across the country, the news reports that 3 demonic transformations have occurred at the same time. A truck driver hears on the radio about a decrease in abnormal sunspots. A man shows on his phone that a demon has appeared and that many people are going to be lost. People exchange worried messages with their loved ones who are in the affected areas. On the battlefield, the demon's sharp claw runs through the man in the suit's chest. The big guy's glasses fall, covered in red, as he's struck by the finishing blow. The hero screams his fallen comrade's name in despair upon seeing the horrible scene. The monster praises the veteran's bravery, who managed to avoid his heart, even at the last second. The creature says this will only make him suffer longer as the hero watches. The man with glasses spits out red liquid, but still stands firm, his eyes full of fury. The young man charges with his red weapon to try and save his injured friend on the ground. The enemy smiles and says that one of them is already down and asks what the hero will do now. The young man glares at the monster with pure hatred and says he won't forgive it for this. His injured ally holds him back and says he's still full of energy and it's not over. The demon is pleased and says it will play with them until they're both finished in the arena. The young man tells his friend to fall back, but he refuses, saying he can't handle it alone. The big guy says there are 2 minutes until help arrives and that the pain is blinding him. He remembers his fallen comrade and wonders if he felt pain or didn't even have time. In a flashback, the friend asks if the big guy really wants to be a soldier. The man with glasses explains that working as a dismantler has a pay cap, and he wants more. He says he doesn't like the demonic transformations and the fear they cause in people. The friend agrees and says the city of Nagoya should be bright and full of human warmth. The future big guy says he'll go alone if no one else will, but his friend stops him. Their other companions appear and say they'll follow him wherever he goes. The friend says that when you take care of someone, you have to see it through to the end. He adds that this is what a real boss does, and the future big guy is left speechless. With a toothless grin, he agrees and says that's exactly what he's going to do. The two then share a fist bump, sealing their friendship and loyalty. The friend jokes that he looks like a yakuza, and that having a persona is important for a soldier. The man with glasses appears with gold teeth and says it's part of his character. Back in the present, the big guy says no one is afraid and that everyone is fighting by his side. He remembers the happy moments and attacks the demon with a final blast of blue energy. The monster compliments his resilience and says he's holding up well for someone about to go down. The hero launches an energy attack, begging for help to arrive soon and end it all. He knows that if it takes too long, his injured companion won't be able to hold on. The sniper prepares to help, saying her friends are at their breaking point. The little girl Kuno stops her, saying she'll be done for if she joins the fight now. Suddenly, a soldier in red armor appears and charges straight into the battle. The sniper looks to the side, completely surprised by what she just saw. Just then, a large explosion goes off right in front of the blonde girl dressed as a maid. Her companion runs over and grabs her hand, asking if she's okay after the attack. But the blonde girl says her friend didn't need to risk herself to save her like that. She explains that her part in the story is over, and therefore her mission is complete. The young woman in the apron says she'll disappear soon and wonders why she was helped. Then her partner pulls the girl to run, reminding her that she was just part of an event. With that, the warrior confesses that she can't just accept this sad situation. The heroine states that she can't just cast her aside because she's no longer useful, and the blonde girl is surprised. At that moment, a figure in a bizarre mask appears, talking about the protagonist's role. The creature floats in the air with a dark gaze, seeming to understand the whole situation, and the girl in the dress flashes a confident smile, agreeing to do what was asked. Meanwhile, the young man attacks the bone monster, using his blade covered in red energy. But the enemy retreats nimbly, showing it still has plenty of strength to keep fighting. The hero realizes his body is reaching its limit due to the massive energy drain. He notices he won't be able to handle the pressure as the demon fiercely advances on him. Suddenly, his ally with glasses appears, delivering a powerful blow of blue energy to the target. The veteran comments with a smile on his face that the attack was a direct hit. With all his strength, he swings the giant hammer to try and crush the disgusting creature. The man faces his opponent, saying he'll leave a parting gift before he goes to the other side. Just then, the sniper arrives, firing from up close, and warns that the monster is in for a double dose of trouble. The companion uses a brutal ability, causing a huge explosion of light in the arena. The young man sighs in relief, seeing his friend arrived just in time to save the day. But the demon observes everything and questions what the blonde girl is trying to do now. The mysterious alley creates a glowing barrier, completely ignoring the rules of the game. The monster warns that this kind of power doesn't suit the young lady's character at all. At that moment, the veteran with glasses takes a serious blow, falling to the ground completely wounded. The alley kneels, clutching his injury, feeling that his limit has finally been reached. The creature turns, mocking their sacrifice, stating they've only bought a few seconds. The demon warns that this will only lead to more losses as the great centipede appears in the sky. The hero runs in desperation and shouts his friend's name, trying to warn her about the great danger, but mysteriously, small water bubbles begin to float around, denying the sad ending. The sniper falls backward, seeing the threat approach as the final seconds tick by slowly. Then a gigantic wave of water hits the creature, flinging the monster far away. The bone villain is completely shocked to see the storm forming around it. The beast senses the immense amount of energy that just appeared and can't believe it. A man glows in the midst of the water, stating that his regrets have just lessened a little. Just then, a powerful gold lion-class soldier reveals himself, ready to protect the young ones there. Far away, a father hugs his little daughter, asking her to stay hidden until it's all over. But the little girl points in awe at a bright, magical bubble that has appeared inside the room. The girl smiles, delighted, holding the magic bubble, and saying the man's gift won't disappear at all. Just then, the hero comes down from the castle, surprised to see the famous warrior has arrived to help in the fight. The newcomer praises the young warrior for holding his ground against so many enemies and a demon, but he soon apologizes for arriving so late and confesses he feels like a terrible soldier for it. He explains that he can't help but focus on saving innocent people before jumping headfirst into a fight. The bone creature interrupts the conversation, mocking the soldier's tardiness while sneering at him. Then, the veteran faces the monster, revealing it's been about 2 years since their last encounter. As he speaks, the man makes hidden hand signals, saying he thought the front line was secure. He notices the big guy is badly injured and warns that they can't just move him carelessly. The villain gets annoyed, stating the warrior is an idiot for playing rescuer all the time. With that, the demon continues to taunt him, saying it doesn't matter how much he tries to play the hero here. Just then, the monster gives a wicked smile, stating that the soldier's departed daughter will never come back. The warrior agrees, keeping his cool as he wields his powerful magic weapon, which glows blue. He then activates his special ability, creating a huge number of water bubbles around him. With a determined look, he states that at least fewer parents will lose their children if he fights here. The creature recoils in surprise as it's hit by the attack and realizes those bubbles are very heavy. Annoyed by the pressure of the blow, the monster clicks its tongue, feeling the impact of the water technique. The veteran charges forward, firing a concentrated blast at the opponent's frightening tail. The beast complains that this power is very annoying, as the spheres are heavy and don't pop easily. It realizes that dealing with the spheres takes time, which is the biggest weakness for its bone snakes. Just then, the villain decides to change tactics and leaps forward furiously, intending to take out the warrior directly. But the soldier defends the blow with a water shield, ironically asking if the enemy is sure about that. The demon's eyes widen as it realizes it made a huge mistake by attacking so carelessly. Suddenly, a gigantic sphere of water appears out of nowhere, completely trapping the bizarre creature inside. The monster tries to break free in desperation as the suffocating pressure of the liquid begins to crush its body. The creature is tossed from side to side, trapped in a whirlpool that bounces with impressive force. Seizing the chance, the veteran swings his weapon like a bat and hits the giant bubble with all his might. The impact is so incredible that the water prison is launched into the sky, ascending at enormous speed. The sniper watches the scene, completely shocked, unable to believe the incredible level of power the new ally has shown. The large sphere continues to rise higher and higher, carrying the villain far from the battlefield. The demon curses the warrior as it's carried away against its will, feeling immense anger about the situation. Down below, the soldier watches the opponent's trajectory and ironically asks if the creature enjoyed the flight. Then, the bubble finally pops high in the sky, causing the bone creature to start plummeting from above. During the fall, the monster passes through several magical water rings, strategically created in the air. The beast screams in pain as its body is violently injured by the water magic throughout the descent. With a deafening boom, the demon is slammed into the ground, creating a massive blue explosion. Trapped by the crushing impact, the opponent realizes that fighting this warrior is an insane and difficult task. The monster takes more damage from the powerful magical current, feeling like it's being beaten with no chance to defend itself. Tired of being humiliated, the creature decides it won't continue this battle and looks for an escape route. Seeing a clear area with no traps, the coward tries to escape, desperately throwing itself toward the wall. Just then, the skull creature flies off in a rage, deciding to change targets since it can't get the hero. Then the evil monster plans to throw the entire battlefield into chaos to separate the allies. But the veteran calmly notices that the enemy dodged the traps and landed far away from them. The demon advances with a dark look, thinking the situation is still under its control. With that, the dark beast lunges at the young man in the jacket, believing everything went according to plan. The young fighter maintains a completely serious expression, awaiting the villain's next move. With that, the creature attacks from above using its tail, and is shocked to realize it was lured there. But the monster flashes a bizarre smile, revealing it's very happy to see the boy's strength. The protagonist gathers all his strength with a determined look, focused on crushing his opponent, and with a swift movement, the young man unleashes a strong red energy, shouting for his comrade. Just then, the hero grits his teeth, straining as he releases all this incredible power. However, an immense pain hits the warrior's body, causing him to suffer greatly right in the middle of the blow. The young man panics, feeling his legs give out as they can't handle the impact of the technique. Suddenly, a friendly, glowing hand touches the young man's back to help stabilize him. The injured ally with glasses holds the boy firmly, telling him he'll provide all the support needed. The warrior's eyes widen, completely surprised by his companion's heroic act, and the partner gives a confident smile, even with his face bruised from the confrontation. With this great help, the protagonist lets out a powerful cry, releasing even more red energy. The skull demon stares at the bright light, completely shocked by the sheer scale of the blow. Just then, a strong aerial attack hits the monster head-on, causing a brutal impact from the sky. The collision creates a gigantic explosion, kicking up a huge cloud of dust and crushing the villain. The young fighter takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of exhaustion as his energy fades. He groans in pain, showing that the battle demanded much more from his body than expected. But his injured ally can't hold on any longer and starts to fall, apologizing for pushing them both so hard. The big guy with the water power observes the scene, noting that the attacking warrior always hates fighting alongside him. He reflects that trapping the villain isn't difficult, but the beast's great speed is a real problem. With that, the soldier confesses to the boy that he needed him there, precisely to serve as bait. The veteran gives a smile, saying he's glad the young man remembered an old hand signal. The boy replies cheerfully, recalling that they used to do that landing trick all the time. With that, the partner praises the young man's growth, noting how much stronger he's gotten from a distance. The soldier explains that his varied bubble technique forces the enemy to think carefully before acting. The protagonist concludes that this man must be the most powerful golden soldier in long fights. Suddenly, a frightening voice echoes from the dust, praising the attack, saying it wasn't half bad. The creature's enormous bone skull emerges from the hole in the wall, showing it's still alive, but the evil beast leaps furiously from the rebel with its tail, proving it has a lot of resilience. The gigantic impact kicks up stones as the villain lands right in front of the young warrior. Just then, the demon concentrates purple energy in its hand while staring at the hero with a deadly gaze. The soldier tells the boy to stay calm, advising that the attacks are finally taking effect. He observes that the monster no longer wants to flee, indicating that the last blow really hurt. Suddenly, an immense explosion of golden light hits the castle walls, startling everyone there. The hero and the sniper look up in alarm, noticing an explosion coming from the top of the castle. Just then, a gigantic red attack hits the rebel, and someone screams furiously about the situation. Then a sinister queen in a red dress appears, holding a scythe while screaming in rage. The battlefield suddenly changes, creating enormous spikes that pierce several bodies on the ground. The young man quickly jumps to dodge the spikes, and hears a warning not to stand still there. He observes the destroyed castle tower as a dark dragon flies away from the location. Just then, an ally in a coat arrives riding the beast, noting that the enemy queen has another form. The newcomer lands on the wall, warning that the villain has expanded the area and they need to regroup. The bone creature grumbles in annoyance, realizing that enemy reinforcements have arrived at a terrible time. But the protagonist screams in desperation, asking for a healing monster to save his wounded friend. The dragon riding ally smiles in a friendly way, seemingly already having a solution to this problem. The sniper points her finger furiously, saying that look on his face definitely means yes. The tamer sighs, sweating, and comments that these monsters are rare to use but decides to help. Then he extends a glowing hand to summon a magical creature. Because his partner cannot be lost, a healing slime falls onto the veteran's chest to close the wound and restore the lost blood. With that, the tamer turns his face seriously to face the skull demon down below. The young man gives a threatening smile, his eye glowing, warning that he's going to take out his frustration. The monster smiles back with its orange eyes, seeming to calmly accept the challenge. The beast prepares to attack everyone there, but receives a warning that its action time is up. The villain is completely confused when a red panel appears, stating that the event has ended. The tamer sighs in relief as the system announces that the top contributors will receive prizes. Just then, the hero's body glows, receiving boosts to his stats and a coordinate item. The young fighter holds a small piece of a map in his hands and wonders what it's for. He also receives a beautiful golden spear shaped like a clock for dealing the most damage to the villain. The big guy explains that these events have a hidden timer, and hurting the monster reduces that limit. The soldier concludes that the boy's last attack was the decisive blow to run out the beast's clock. The bone demon complains to the mysterious voice, revealing that it got distracted playing around in the fight. Covered in a purple aura, the bizarre monster gives up the fight, deciding to leave for now. The creature clutches its wounded chest, admitting the young fighter held up much better than expected. Being swallowed by the shadows, the villain tells the boy to save up plenty of pain for their next duel. The protagonist furiously shouts the opponent's name as he watches the cowardly escape unfold, and the monster disappears completely into the magic portal, saying their boss will be very happy. The young man stares into the void with a determined look, sweating from exhaustion after the long battle. Just then, his ally warns the young man not to relax, as the dangerous enemy queen is still around. The tamer smiles, explaining that the room's seal broke, and he told all the soldiers to flee. He says he escorted the troops out of the castle, and hopes everyone makes it out alive. With that, the big guy holds his water weapon, agreeing with the plan and saying he'll provide support. The veteran asks the boy to defeat the queen, as this new spear seems to have a special power. He deduces that the area's theme is based on a fairy tale, and the clock weapon will be the key. The hero grips the glowing spear with confidence, and states that he can handle it. The protagonist holds his new weapon, commenting that he doesn't know how to use it but feels its great power. At that moment, the dark dragon flies swiftly through the red sky, cutting through the air at high speed. Riding the flying beast, the girl screams, terrified, as she tries to hold on so she doesn't fall. The veteran creates a magic bubble on the young woman's foot, warning that it will stick like chewing gum. He assures her that she won't fall so easily with it, and then asks if the hero wants one too. But the fighter refuses the help, saying that flying monsters are great for dodging spikes. Down below, the evil queen watches them angrily, wanting to attack them all at once. And with a swing of her scythe, the villain activates mysterious cannons hidden in the castle wall. The hero is startled to see the cannons, noticing the enemy queen is about to fight back. The water warrior protects the girl with a bubble attached to the dragon while asking about the hero. The young man focuses on his flying strategy while the dark dragon dodges the ground threats. On the ground, the queen in the red dress becomes even more furious, wanting to knock them out of the sky. The villain points her lethal weapon upward, preparing a major attack against the small group. The hero is startled, realizing the situation has gotten bad because the queen has hidden cannons. A soldier in armor prepares the giant weapon, and the hero notices it's no ordinary cannon. Soon, the huge equipment fires with a brilliant explosion, sending the projectile into the sky. The shot narrowly misses them, and the sniper's eyes widen as she clings to the dragon. The young woman screams in fear, realizing the shot was actually a soldier launched into the air. The tamer sighs calmly, thinking it would be easier if the enemy just flew past them. But suddenly, a malevolent red angel descends, tearing through the sky and charging to attack. The queen reloads the cannon with her minions, showing that this fight is far from over. Another explosive shot is fired from the wall with even more fury, illuminating the dark sky. And again, the girl screams in desperation as she sees another deadly enemy crossing the sky toward them. The blonde girl warns that another soldier has been shot into the air, and the warrior is shocked by the discovery. The tamer sighs in disappointment, realizing the battle will be even tougher than he thought. Just then, the girl screams in desperation, warning that the flying creature is returning to get them. The group sees the enemy angel's attack coming in fast, as the blonde girl yells for them to shoot. The red angel soldier attacks violently, diving onto the group with its menacing spear, and the sniper aims her weapon, calling the dangerous creature a missile because of its speed. Suddenly, the angel soldier charges fiercely, preparing its huge sword for a final attack. The hero blocks the enemy's violent blow, complaining that the pain feels like a sledgehammer hit. The impact of the block sends him flying backward as he calls out for the tamer with all his might. The short-haired girl's eyes widen in fear as her ally takes out his magic pipe. The young man summons a water whip around him, preparing a powerful technique to help them. Without wasting time, the warrior blows into the pipe and announces he's going to use a suction move. He pulls the hero back with his water whip, bringing the boy swiftly back to the saddle. The young man returns safe and sound thanks to the water move, and his ally refocuses on the fight. Soon, the hero pulls his partner as another red angel prepares to attack the group from behind. The tamer gives a mocking smile, noting the team's lack of strategy and finding it all disappointing. He concludes that the way things are going, they won't be able to get close to the castle because of the shots. Just then, the veteran in the coat readies himself, holding his magic pipe with a very serious look. Then he creates a giant barrier of explosive bubbles that glow intensely in the sky. The evil queen lifts her head, completely shocked to see the massive attack forming. With a snap of his fingers, the ally makes the large bubble pop and disappear in an instant, and a massive blue explosion destroys the entire castle tower, stopping the attacks immediately. The soldier apologizes, saying he's weak, but the tamer smiles, seeing that the shots have stopped. But the villain screams, filled with rage, and launches gigantic spikes from the wall to pierce the group. Just then, the great dragon narrowly dodges the deadly trap as it flies higher and higher. The tamer then shouts, asking his water partner to prepare another big surprise attack. Suddenly, the flying beast throws the protagonist from up high, straight onto the castle roof, and the young man sighs in relief, noting that their risky strategy worked out great in the end. With that, the young warrior dives through the air, pointing his glowing spear at the queen. But the villain refuses to lose her kingdom and creates a dangerous purple wheel of pure dark energy. She launches the magical wheel of punishment, which tears through the air toward the falling young man. The protagonist strikes with all his might, cutting the attack in half, but feels immense pain in his body. Enduring the terrible damage, the boy faces the monarch, warning her that the place doesn't belong to her. Just then, a golden flash illuminates everything as the hero lands a fatal and very bright blow. The evil creature suffers from the strong impact as its crown begins to fall from its head. The monarch's red eyes show desperation as her face begins to shatter into pieces. The young man then runs the spear through the enemy's chest, stating that it was all just a dream, and a gigantic golden clock appears in the air, shining brightly to mark the end of that threat. With great force, the warrior lands on the destroyed ground, spreading pure energy everywhere. The villain lets out one last terrifying scream before being consumed by the devastating attack. As she is defeated, the woman taunts, asking if the boy's chest is hurting now too. The young man's friends watch the end of the fight, feeling the heavy weight of those bizarre words. But the fighter turns his back to the dust, stating that the queen actually has no heart. Just then, the dragon-riding tamer closes his eyes with a slight smile of relief on his face. The giant castle begins to collapse, and the ally in the coat shouts for the hero to get in the bubble quickly. The young man quickly floats, protected by the magic, noticing that the nightmare was finally over. However, the young man's eyes widen as he notices something very strange happening amid the revel. 4 small blonde girls in cute outfits appear standing on the destroyed floor of the place. The girls smile, saying that it was a great dream, and it's almost a shame to have to wake up. The sniper hears the little girls saying a happy goodbye as the scenery fades away. The small spirits begin to turn into light and promise that they will meet again someday. One of the little girls gives a sweet smile, hoping to see her saviors in a future dream. With that, the structure collapses completely, ending the demonic transformation in that city. Far away, a man in a white suit reads the report of the fallen and asks for forgiveness for the sad disaster. He observes the ruins of the place, noting that the soldier with glasses survived and that revenge will have to wait. Meanwhile, a new threat emerges, walking steadily through a place covered in a red aura. A man with a mustache holds his loaded weapon, with a very serious look, ready to fight. And without hesitation, the old man fires a powerful shot that flies, destroying pieces of the ruined castle. A reporter speaks excitedly, stating that even in chaos, heroes always emerge to save the day. He firmly asks people to continue supporting the hard work of all the brave soldiers. While watching the news, the tamer realizes that the message is just to boost troop morale, but the veteran soldier disagrees, stating that declaring victory prematurely isn't cool. He looks at the young partner, noting that the situation is still bad if you look at the marks in the sky. The sniper also notices the dark spots on the sun that appeared along with the enemy castle. The warrior explains that those spots grow if they fail but shrink if the monsters are taken down. Just then, a handsome young man approaches the group, sipping his drink while praising their work in the fight. The sniper whispers in admiration, saying that the charming guy fought in the castle with them. He smiles in a friendly way, saying he's the new soldier and that the gentleman was speaking too loudly. The rookie sadly explains that the association is getting very desperate as allies continue to fall. He takes a sip from his glass, thinking it's normal to focus on the good things and try not to discourage others. But the old timer grumbles, not giving a darn about the association since he never cared about rising in rank. The rookie soldier smiles, saying the old man is very stubborn, but realizes he already understands the situation. A chick woman approaches, greeting the veteran and thanking him for looking after her little brother, and the rookie raises his glass, happy to see his friend, while the big warrior stands there surprised. The blonde woman despairs, while the warrior grumbles that his partner shouldn't only prioritize rescues. The chick's sister takes a sip of her drink, stating that her brother also always focuses on the tough fights. The rookie smiles awkwardly, saying that almost no soldiers like to focus on rescues because of the low reward. But the old man retorts, warning that it's no use putting inexperienced recruits on crucial rescue missions. And impatiently, the young man agrees, not wanting to argue since military rules are always very strict. He smiles, saying a friendly goodbye to everyone, and the chick woman glares at the hero with an unfriendly look. With that, the charming young man walks away calmly, telling them not to mind his sister's bad mood. The rookie looks away seriously, remembering that this meddling girl keeps getting in the way of his plans. He mutters about wanting to pull the protagonist to his side as soon as possible to gain more advantages. The old soldier drinks from his bottle, noting that the main teams are trying to show off again, and his warrior partner joins him, agreeing that those big shots only know how to give orders and talk big. But the rookie notices his colleague's sideways glance and smirks, mocking him for not liking this boring topic at all. He faces the duo with an arrogant smile, asking if they want to talk a little more about it, and with a purple glow in his eyes, the dragon's partner shows he's ready to help with whatever is needed. Far away, the short-haired girl is angry because that guy didn't even show up to the big party, and the hero sees his ally running outside, feeling very guilty for not being able to help in time. But the veteran lightly pats the young man's back, warning him not to let the guilt of the fallen weigh him down. They jump between buildings until the old man points out that this weight on one's conscience is fatal in a real battle, but the hero and his allies' eyes widen when some hooded, masked figures appear. A dark figure lunges forward quickly, drawing a sinister blade shrouded in a powerful magical aura. The sniper blinks, not understanding how they got so close, and is shocked to see the swift movement, and she is thrown into the air when a masked figure uses their cutting power to strike the ground near her. The young fighter concentrates his red energy for combat, realizing the soldiers have rare weapons. He notices that the opponent's weapons look blurry, as if someone is disguising them. The old soldier grumbles, thinking this ambush is pretty dumb since there are still people on the street. Someone watches the fight from above, commenting that it looks like a disagreement between soldiers, and the charming young man smiles, sipping his juice while watching the chaos unfold with pleasure. The masked figures boast of their victory, thinking it was very easy to manipulate the fools into attacking. He reveals that he never ordered the guys to attack, but they got excited and went on their own. The charming young man explains that he just sparked something in their hearts using his power of persuasion. The mysterious soldier complains that rookies are so annoying as he moves in to attack, but the hero counters the attack, saying those guys are a bunch of arrogant idiots who think they're smart. The masked man scoffs, claiming anyone could win if they had a strong veteran nearby. The sniper gets annoyed by the taunt and complains that it's very difficult to attack other humans there. The young man in the coat smiles, agreeing that fighting ordinary people is harder than fighting monsters. He explains that there are only two options at that moment. Either they retreat or they go for the finish. And if the enemies retreat, he'll help calm things down so they'll owe him a favor. But if the fight continues, he'll get rid of all the evidence before the situation gets even worse. Either way, the group will be in his debt, and if that helps him win, the young man will be very happy. The sniper prepares to fight back, firing her golden weapon without caring about the rules. The masked man mocks the girl's cleverness for getting close to such powerful veterans, and with a threatening look, he asks how many times she had to get involved to get there. The sniper is shocked by the question, and the man scoffs, asking if she does that with old men. The protagonist can't take it anymore and lands a solid punch right in the arrogant masked man's face. And with the blow, the enemy stumbles back, crying out in pain, as his friend is startled by the scene. The veteran readies his weapon to attack with full force, prepared to defend his friend tooth and nail. He hits the opponent with a powerful kick to the chest, making the masked man groan in pain. The old man moves quickly through the enemies, causing a huge commotion with his power. Furious, the two warriors shout at the masked man to take back what he said immediately. The fallen soldier realizes the girl as a warrior, not just anyone, as he had suggested. Just then, the veteran gets angry, warning that he won't allow insults against such a brave partner, and with a brilliant attack, he shatters the enemy's masks, revealing their surprised faces. With their guard down, the two masked men fall to the ground, feeling the impact of the veteran's blow. The protagonist clenches his fists, warning that they can insult him all they want, but not his friend. He glares at the fallen enemy with great anger, warning them not to tarnish his partner's honor. With a clenched fist and his head down, the young man promises he will have no more mercy for them, and with eyes full of hatred, he tells the soldiers to come and fight, ready to face a tragic end. The two young men tremble in fear upon seeing the warrior's terrifying aura, and feel they've messed up badly. Without a second thought, the soldiers flee, running in fear of getting beaten more by the young fighter. People on the street recognize the heroes from the news, and are impressed by the old man's strength, and from above, the charming young man films the scene with his phone, letting out a mocking laugh. He watches the enemies run away in fear, even though they started the fight feeling superior, and with a wicked smile, he laments that his plan was ruined, since he won't have to clean up. He hides his face with a sarcastic smile, noting that things have gotten very interesting. However, the young man feels awkward, noticing that his plan didn't work out at all in the end. The young man wonders why he's smiling to himself, since his trap failed miserably. With that, He imagines that the mummy hunter ended up becoming the mummy himself, in a joke of fate. A few days later, at the Soldiers' Association, an elegant woman receives the heroes for a talk. She asks if the young hero has discovered anything about the forgotten place with that item. The woman explains that the piece came with coordinates to a remote location in Spain, but it's a mystery. The protagonist asks if there are any similar cases, but she says no, explaining that this is very rare. The sniper speculates that it might be the location of the next demonic transformation in the world. The other warrior explains that transformations happen near the initial nightmare in Japan, so the group leader says they need to go there to investigate with their own eyes. But the archer warns she doesn't have a passport, and the veteran says his has been expired for a long time. The woman smiles, showing that she's already taken care of everything and got new passports for the whole team. The hero panics when he learns the flight is in 2 hours, and they have no time to pack. With a confident smile, she tells them they can celebrate because they have exactly 10 minutes to do it. As the plane flies, the young man realizes he was practically kidnapped by that crazy woman, and soon, the group arrives at their destination in a mountainous region full of ruins in Spain. They observe the rubble of an old, destroyed castle that holds many dark secrets. Inside the place, a scary statue of a hooded, winged angel catches everyone's attention. The statue's face is covered by a bizarre mask with a red eye stitched right in the middle. In the car, the driver reveals that an elite Japanese soldier requested a guide for this mission. The guide praises the city, saying the food is great and the weather is perfect for a normal stroll. The woman smiles, saying they can enjoy the place after they've taken care of all their business. The young man stares at the magical item, thinking that this clue is the key to discovering something important, and the group leader looks at the landscape, feeling that something very terrible happened there. The guide explains that a cult got out of control, reminding him of a similar case that occurred in Japan. He says that those people gathered many children to do terrible things in that place. Then the protagonist gets out of the car to see it up close as the guide says it was a fake charity. The hero walks to the castle upon discovering that the children were forced to fight each other to the end. He steps firmly on the stone floor, feeling the heavy and sad energy that still lingers in the air. The woman says that no one knows the exact number, but it's believed that at least 100 people lived there. The guide reads his papers, explaining that at first, no one suspected anything because the children seemed fine. But the truth was discovered 20 years ago when a group of children managed to escape the place. And crying hard, the little ones asked for help, saying they were forced to face each other inside. When the police arrived, they found the place empty, with only traces of a great massacre. Investigations revealed that most of the children didn't even have identification documents. The veteran concludes that they really existed, but no one knows who they really were. With that, the young man listens in silence as he's told the purpose and origin of those children is a mystery. The sniper asks about the 3 children who managed to escape that terrible event, and the guide explains that they were taken to other facilities and were never seen again. Suddenly, the hero finds an empty bullet casing lying on the floor of the dark hallway, and he wonders why there would be empty bullet casings scattered around that place. But upon picking up the object, a strange vision invades his mind, leaving him very dazed. He sees a man smiling in a creepy way while playing Russian roulette by himself. With that, the gun's trigger is pulled, but luckily, the chamber was completely empty. One of the youths observes the game and says that, obviously, the 3rd shot would also be empty. The hooded figure tells the boy not to be afraid and to have fun so as not to spoil the game. He says it's just a game, and the scared boy trembles in fear in front of him, and with a wicked smile, the man announces that it's now the other boy's turn to participate. Another boy with bright eyes prepares to start a macabre game with the others. He calls the others to knock on heaven's door together in a deadly game of no return. As the vision ends, the hero comes to, completely shocked and sweating in despair. The veteran notices his partner's state and asks with concern what he saw that was so bad. The young fighter explains that he only saw fragments of what really happened in that place. The woman then understands the situation and reveals that her friend was actually one of those involved. And to everyone's surprise, she says that he was one of the survivors of that event. The sniper is shocked by the revelation and asks if he used to be human before. The young man explains that they used to take each other out inside, following a set of very cruel rules. The leader compares it to a deadly game, similar to the demonic world's transformation. The veteran then suggests that maybe they were practicing the ancient Kodoku ritual. The archer recognizes the name and remembers. It's a ritual of putting insects in a jar to fight. The old man confirms, explaining that the survivor from the jar is used for sorcery and curses. The leader supposes that the same method was used there to perform a kind of hidden selection, and it's very simple in a deadly game like that. Only a single person could survive. She continues, explaining that they gathered children with no families to compete with their lives, and with that, they could choose the best of them all to become an elite assassin. The young man then asks what they used the winner of that terrible and cruel game for. The doors open, revealing the dark room with the sinister statue in the center of the altar. Everyone stares at the statue with the bizarre mask and the red eye stitched in the middle of its face. The guide points to the stone figure, and the hero asks if that was their sacred statue. The man confirms, warning that no one knows what exactly they worshipped in that place. He reveals that the adults who ran the place called themselves by a very strange name. The guide says the name they used to identify themselves was none other than the Openers. The statue's mask seems to come to life, with a red glow emanating from its stitches. Suddenly, a bright light appears in the place, leaving the protagonist completely startled, and in the darkness, a giant red eye slowly opens, staring at the young warrior. The huge eye stares at the hero, who is paralyzed with fear before the frightening vision. The sniper calls her partner's name with concern, noticing he seemed to be in a trance. The young man realizes that only he can see it and receives a protection notification from the system. He remains silent, completely shocked by the new ability he has just awakened. A purple aura with skeletal hands envelops him, and the system warns that its use is at his own risk.